Story 1. Stuck-up Mill demanded I'd let Sil and her new husband from her third marriage move into my house after my husband died. I agreed, moved out, and stuck them with all the bills. For months ago, I lost my husband. I still cannot believe it as I am writing this because I still feel like he is here with me every day. I am always hoping that I might wake up tomorrow and realize it has all been a very bad dream. He came back from work one day, and after being at home for half an hour or so, he suddenly collapsed on the ground. Of course, I called the emergency number immediately. They sent an ambulance to our house. They told me to give him CPR, but even though I tried, I probably didn't do it properly because I had never learned it before. My husband basically died in my arms. It happened so fast. It was a matter of minutes. The ambulance arrived only to confirm his death. Then the police came too and asked me a lot of questions. The medics took the body away, and they told me an autopsy would be required because there was no obvious reason for death. I agreed, of course. Even if they hadn't said it was necessary, I would have requested it myself because I had to know why it happened. In my head, nothing made sense because he was just 33 years old, young and healthy. I couldn't imagine any reason that would make him just drop dead. After everyone left, I was in a state of shock. Felt as if I was losing my mind. I cried, I talked to myself, I talked to God, even though I have never been that religious. Then, I pulled myself together enough to call my Mill and tell her what happened. My Mill has never liked me from the moment we got introduced to each other. She didn't like me. I had no idea what I did to make her hate me. I had always been polite to her, so I didn't know what her problem was with me. For example, I was never once included in family events like trips away. When my husband was alive, she didn't really seem to have any interest in talking to me, and I was given a backhanded comment about being there for my partner when he was going through a tough time because he confided in me and not her. I never overstepped her boundaries and always tried my best when I was around Mill to get to know her as best I could. But sadly, she never saw my efforts. Sil was exactly like my Mill. She was cold to me and would ignore me for no reason at family functions. She would even talk over me on several occasions, purposefully ignoring me. My husband noticed this and tried to talk to her several times about it, but she never changed. Whenever we used to meet, Mill and Sil never once asked me about my career or my parents to see how my life was going. Mill once even called me stuck up and spoiled just because my parents sent me to a private school and she was a public school teacher. My conversation with Mill only focused on her son. I even know she tried to talk my husband out of marrying me and told him to keep looking for a better partner than me. Fortunately, my husband didn't care about her opinion and proposed to me anyway. When Mill found out that he had proposed, she freaked out and called to tell me that I should strive to be the best wife for him and take care of him the way that she has taken care of him all these years. I was a bit offended, but I tried to not take more offense to her words. Sil never even reached out to congratulate me, despite the fact that my husband called to inform her. She only talked with him and refused to even acknowledge me. My husband and I had already decided to pay for our own wedding, so when Mill offered to pay half for our wedding, we declined graciously. This made her even more upset, and she started to tell my husband how sad she was that he didn't need her anymore. So to compromise, we told her that we would love it if she wanted to organize the rehearsal dinner for us. She agreed, and we appreciated the gesture. However, as the wedding approached, things took an unexpected turn. The night before the wedding, she embarrassed me in front of family and friends, saying she couldn't wait for the wedding stuff to be over and how stressful it had been, even though she did not contribute financially or in any planning. Despite this, we hoped the rehearsal dinner would be a positive experience. When I offered to help, she declined, stating she had it all taken care of. However, upon arrival, it became evident that the preparations were not as anticipated. The rehearsal dinner turned out to be a collection of plastic tablecloths on picnic tables and cold Mexican food. During the wedding, she kept acting upset, and it made the whole celebration feel a bit off. She got drunk and started behaving inappropriately with the other guests, so we had to ask Sil to escort her out. My Sil protested, trying to justify her mother's behavior, but my husband stood firm, and eventually, both of them left together. My husband reprimanded my Mill strongly the next day, and they had a huge fight. Ever since that day, both Mill and Sil had as little contact with us as possible. Years passed since we ever talked with them. So when my husband passed away, I had to gather my courage and give my Mill a call to tell her about what had happened. When I told her, she couldn't believe it at first, and then she started to blame me. She was yelling that it was my fault, that I killed her son, and that she was going to make me pay for it. I never thought that she would support or comfort me at these trying times, but I also wasn't expecting her to react to something like this. I also had tried to inform Sil, but she didn't pick up my call, so I hoped she would hear the news from Mill. The next day, a doctor contacted me and told me that the first results of the autopsy of my husband revealed the cause of death, which was a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot that had blocked the main pulmonary artery. The doctor basically told me that my husband had no chance. I could have done absolutely nothing, and even if the ambulance was right there with us, they could have done nothing too. I got a copy of the results and called Mill again to inform her about the results. She listened to the result and seemed a bit calmer, so I thought she would be okay. We agreed that she would be coming to my house that evening to talk about the funeral, will, and everything. Little did I know what was about to happen. She arrived that evening, but she wasn't alone. She had the police with her. We live in a relatively small town and we only have one police station in our area. These were the same officers who had come to my house the day my husband passed away and had already asked questions to me regarding his death. They remembered me, and Mill started to tell them that I was a murderer, that I had killed her son, that I had planned it all. She really thought that they would arrest me with her speech. I remained calm and informed the police that I was ready to show them the copy of the autopsy that I had received earlier. They nodded and I got it to show it to them. The police read through the copy and they tried to explain to Mill that it wasn't a murder and that her son had died because of a medical condition that no one could have caused. She in turn started to argue with them that they shouldn't believe the paper, that anyone can make and print such fake documents these days. The officers tried to convince her as much as they could, yet she continued to yell and create a scene. They were really nice to me. They told me not to worry and then they left because obviously there wasn't any crime. Mill was furious about it and swore that she was going to put me in prison anyway. I was not worried about her words because I knew I was innocent and the authorities knew it as well. The next thing we clashed on was the funeral. My husband and I never really talked about death because we were quite young to think about death and we had not planned to die anytime soon. However, I remember that once when we attended the funeral of someone last year, my husband said how he would like to be cremated instead of buried when he dies, and that's what I thought I would be doing. I was going to cremate him. Mill, on the other hand, wanted to give him a traditional burial. So when she found out about my idea, she started to yell at me again. She was like, "Oh, you just want to get rid of my son's body so there would be no evidence against you, right? You've planned everything." Sil, who was standing nearby, joined her as well and accused me of trying to erase any evidence and planning all of this just to hurt them. I was starting to lose my patience with their cruel words. I stuck by my words and told them that if they wanted to bury something of him so badly, they could bury his ashes. Mill threatened to sue me, but I laughed because I knew there was nothing that she could do. She even told me how I allowed the hospital to butcher her son, meaning the autopsy. I looked at her incredulously and asked her what she meant by that. I explained to her that it was a necessary procedure to be done. The hospital people deemed it necessary and we needed to know why my husband passed away so suddenly. Sil then started to accuse me of how I would have killed him because of our mounting pressures in marriage. I scoffed and informed her that we were a two-income household with no children, so we had absolutely no tension. I assured her that whatever happened to him was completely unexpected and it had nothing to do with any household stress whatsoever. As if these arguments weren't enough, Mill continued to fight with me over the days for unnecessary things. When I was organizing the funeral music, the place, the coffin, she even didn't want certain people to attend and I was like, "No, it's a funeral for my husband and he would have wanted these people to be there." Everyone who wanted to say goodbye to him for the last time was welcome and I wouldn't push anyone away. I could see the resentment on her face, but there was nothing that she could do. After the funeral, we had to go and meet with the lawyer to discuss my husband's will. As the lawyer read through the document, it became clear that my husband had left everything to me. Mill and Sil, however, completely lost their minds. Accusations flew like arrows. They accused me of killing my husband for the money, labeling me a gold digger. I couldn't believe her words. Their reaction was not only hurtful but also completely unfounded. The pain of losing my husband was already overwhelming, and their baseless accusations only added to the heartache. She somehow believed that her son would have lived if he hadn't married me, that he died because of the life with me. I understood that she was hurt. She was a mother and she lost her son. So despite all the tension, I had always held my tongue. Understanding her grief was clouding her judgment. But I didn't deserve this attitude. I loved him too. I told her that it wasn't fair for her to blame me for my husband's death, and that I was financially capable enough also so my husband didn't have to leave anything for me. But he did because he loved me. So if she and Sil had a problem with it, they were welcome to form their own judgment. But that I wasn't going to sit here and listen to them take out their anger on me. I made it very clear to them that they were welcome to contact me once they had calmed down and understood how ridiculous and baseless their accusations were. 2 months passed with neither of them contacting me. This was already a tumultuous time in my life, and honestly, I was just glad that they didn't make it any harder. My parents spent several weeks with me at home because I was too afraid to spend time alone at the house. Every corner of my house reminded me of my dear husband. I had spent countless nights crying myself to sleep. My dad, seeing my state, subtly suggested that I should sell the house so that I could live with them for the time being, and my mom agreed. They were concerned about me, but I didn't want to let go of my house as it felt like the last connection I had with my husband, and I was too afraid to give it up. Last month, out of the blue, my mill called me, breaking the silence. Surprisingly, she asked how I was and inquired about the well-being of the house. The unexpected call caught me off guard, and I hesitated for a moment. Despite the challenging history, I tried to keep the conversation civil and updated her on my situation. I mentioned the ongoing struggle of adjusting to life without my husband, the difficulty of navigating through the grief, and the emotional weight of being in the house that held memories of happier times. Then, out of the blue, my mother-in-law dropped a bombshell. She straightaway informed me that my sister-in-law had got married again. I was shocked as I had not been invited, but Mill told me that they didn't want to disturb me as I was still grieving for my husband. I found it a bit odd that my Sil could get married so fast with someone I had never even heard about. My Mill then continued saying that she had decided that since Sil didn't have a place of her own, she had asked Sil and her new husband from her third marriage to move into my house. I was taken aback by her demand and struggled to form words. I asked her if she was joking with me, but my Mill went on to say that she was in fact very serious and that Sil and her husband deserved to live together after marriage, but she did not have space at her own house to let them move in. Hence, she had asked them to move in with me. The weight of this announcement hung in the air, and I found myself trying to compose a response amid the whirlwind of emotions that now enveloped me. I explained to her how that this was my house now, and that the notion of someone else moving in with me so abruptly without asking for my permission felt intrusive and overwhelming. I told her that I would be happy to host Sil and her new husband for a few days if that's what they wanted, but I didn't want them to move in with me for weeks. However, my mother-in-law insisted, emphasizing that my husband had left the house to me, and since I was now living alone, making space for my sister-in-law and her husband was expected of me as a beautiful daughter-in-law if I still wanted to be a part of their family. Despite my efforts to convey my feelings and reservations, she stood firm on her stance, making it clear that her decision was non-negotiable. The weight of her words left me grappling with a sense of helplessness. Despite how much I protested that this was my home, my mother-in-law argued that as a widow living alone, I had the space and resources to accommodate them temporarily. Frustrated and unwilling to engage in a prolonged argument, I was about to tell her if Sil and her husband ever showed up on my doorstep, then I would call the police. But suddenly an idea sparked in my mind. I knew that living in this house where I had shared countless memories with my husband would be hard in the long run, as it would continue to remind me of my husband everywhere. So if Sil and her new husband wanted to live in this house, they were welcome to do so as long as they paid their own bills. I also knew that if I told Mill right then about my plan, she wouldn't agree and make an issue out of this as well. So I kept quiet and simply decided to agree to her absurd demand. I called up my parents and informed them of my plan with my Sil, and they told me that they had my back. Slowly, I began to pack up my belongings so I could move in with my parents, making room for my Sil and her husband. Meanwhile, to transfer the utility bills to my sister-in-law's name, I diligently reached out to each utility provider. I informed them of the recent changes in the occupancy of the house and inquired about the essential steps to update the billing information. For the bills, I filled out the necessary forms so that they would now be billed to my sister-in-law. When the day arrived for them to move in, I handed over the keys and explained that as a wedding present, they had the entire house to themselves. Sil was overjoyed and called up my mill in excitement, who seemed pleased that her daughter and her new spouse could live without any disturbances. Watching them rejoice, I think they both believed that I'd given in to their demands and given up my house entirely to Sil. I shifted back into my parents' place and have been living with them ever since. My parents still kept my old room, so it feels nostalgic to be back here. I feel much better here than how I felt back in my house. When the month ended, I think bills started arriving, addressed not to me, but to Sil. Electricity, water, and other utilities all in her name. Confused and frustrated, Sil called me demanding an explanation. It was then that I calmly informed her that since she and her mother wanted to live in my place, they would be responsible for all the bills. You see, before moving out, I had shifted all the bills to her name, except for the deed of the house. Sil erupted in a fit of rage, shouting and expressing her displeasure. She threatened that she wouldn't be paying the bills. I scoffed at her and told her that if she didn't pay the bills on time, she would have to then pay the fines which would be coming in her name as well. This pissed her off even more, and she continued to yell while I smiled in satisfaction. Soon after, my mother-in-law called, yelling at me for daring to charge her daughter for bills. She claimed that my Sil and her husband couldn't afford it as they were almost broke and that I should pay their bills from the goodness of my heart. I firmly told her that it was never going to happen, and after bickering with me for a while, she announced that because of my stubbornness to not pay their bills, Sil and her husband were now planning to move out as they couldn't afford to pay for the utility. I told her I would be happy to have my house back, and my mill accused me of being heartless and prioritizing money over family. I didn't say anything to her, and she cut the call in anger. The tables had turned, and I felt relief at the prospect of regaining control of my home. What was initially a scheme by my mill to inconvenience me had backfired on her and Sil. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction knowing that I had not only stood my ground but also exposed the hypocrisy of their demands. However, I do feel a bit guilty, and I am here on Reddit wondering if what I have done makes me an a-hole. Update 1. Thank you to everyone who has shown their support for me. I've been so sad ever since my husband passed away, but reading all your comments and your personal experiences with losing loved ones makes me feel a bit better to know that I am not alone. To answer the most important question that everyone keeps asking on why I even allowed my Sil and her husband to move in the first place, it's because my mill is not an easy person to argue with. She is extremely narcissistic and will do anything to have her own way. I also knew that ever since the lawyer had announced that my husband had left the house for me, she had her eyes on it. My Sil is just a pawn in her play who goes along with whatever her mom wants. I am sure they thought when I moved out that I had cleared their way to take over the house, and they had not expected any retribution. My Sil and her husband have moved out, and she has begged me to pay the outstanding bills as she has no money and doesn't want to be penalized. I have agreed to pay the bills for last month to clear her due, and will then change the utilities to my name now that she won't be staying in the house. I guess my Sil has learned a valuable lesson. Update 2. It's been an interesting last week. As you know, since my last update, my Sil moved out of my house in frustration after she found out that the bills were coming to her name. I cleared her dues once I saw for myself that she had genuinely moved out of the house. I have changed all the locks in the house. For the time being, I am still living with my parents. 2 days ago, Mill reached out to my parents in a bid to complain to them about how disrespectful I have been. She had continued to call me and yell at me for what I did to Sil, but I guess she wanted to take it up a notch. She called my mother's phone in the morning to tell her how difficult I was making her life by forcing her to live with Sil and her new husband when I could easily offer my house to them and pay for their bills. My mother, who has known all the antics of my mill, calmly explained to her that now that I needed to take care of myself first and she should take care of her own daughter, and encouraged the married couple to move out and live on their own instead of depending on a widow like me to take care of them. My Mill didn't expect this reaction and tried to justify saying that any good daughter-in-law would have done this. But because it was me, she had to live with such disappointment. My mother retorted that the actual disappointment was her and her own daughter for expecting someone else to take care of them, and warned her that the next time she ever called me or threatened me, we would go the legal way. This scared my Mill straight, and she tried to say how this wasn't such a big deal. But my mother wasn't having it. Watching my mother stand up for me felt good and taught me that Mill was just a big bully who forced other people to match her expectations. Since then, she and my Sil haven't contacted me, and I pray that they continue to stay away from me. I am also thinking of selling my house so I can start afresh at a new place where my in-laws can't show up unannounced and disturb my peace ever again. Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update. I have finally listed my house for sale. The decision to do this hasn't been easy, and it brought up a lot of mixed feelings. It was sad to let go of a place filled with memories, but it also felt like a step toward a fresh start. I've been talking to a therapist to help me deal with all the emotions. It's been a safe space to talk about what I'm going through and find ways to handle it. Therapy has been really helpful in understanding myself better and figuring out how to cope. Dealing with grief is tough, and every day is different. Some days are really sad and others are a bit more hopeful. I'm learning to accept the ups and downs. Having people around me who care has made a big difference. Friends and family have been there for me throughout all this. It's not always easy, but I'm learning more about myself and feeling stronger each day. Now on to the next story. Story 2. My stepmom caused a crash that unalived my twin sister, and now she's taking over her room for her new baby. I, 17F, had an identical twin sister. We were inseparable and did everything together. She was honestly my best friend. Last year in September, my stepmom had to pick us up from a volleyball game. Our dad usually picked us up, but he was out of town. She was an hour late because she forgot about us. On the way home, she kept ranting about how we disturbed her nap. Long story short, she ran a stop sign at an intersection. We got into a horrible accident. Most of that night was a blur, but I remember the last few minutes before the crash. I was hospitalized for weeks, but my twin sister passed away that night. I haven't forgiven my stepmom. She refuses to acknowledge that she was in the wrong, even though there were eyewitnesses present. She refuses to accept responsibility for causing the accident. I'm not an angry person. I'm very calm and not confrontational at all, but I can't even look at her without feeling like she stole from me. She stole my sister's life away, and she acts like my sister never existed to begin with. One thing that really struck a nerve was when I was out at Walmart with my dad and stepmom. We had to buy something for my younger brother, and they started a conversation with an old man. I can't remember exactly what they were talking about, but the old man asked my dad how many kids he had. My dad said he had 4 kids, but my stepmom corrected him by saying, "Number 3. That just made me really sad." I didn't speak to her the rest of the day. I can't describe how I feel. I lost my best friend who I shared everything with. My sister knew exactly how I felt about everything because we experienced life together. Now, I constantly feel like I'm a zombie. I often dream about her, but when I wake up and reality hits, it absolutely crushes me. Living is unbearable without my sister. For some background, my dad cheated on my mom with my stepmom. They ultimately got divorced, which was really hard on our family. My mom ended up moving back to her home country in Europe. My twin sister and I had to stay with our dad. I, 17F, live with my dad, my stepmom, and my younger brothers. Last year in September, my twin sister and I had a volleyball game at school. My dad was usually the one who picked us up from our games and practices, but he couldn't that night. My dad was out of town, so our stepmom had to come pick us up. She arrived an hour late because she took a nap and forgot about us. As soon as we got in the car, she started going on a rant about how we disturbed her nap. Long story short, she ran a stop sign at an intersection. We got into a horrible accident. Most of that night was a blur, but I remember the last few minutes before the crash. I was hospitalized for weeks, but my twin sister passed away that night. I can't describe how I feel. I lost my best friend who I shared everything with. My sister knew exactly how I felt about everything because we experienced life together. Now, I constantly feel like I'm a zombie. I'm not suicidal, but I often imagine slinking about ending my own life because living is unbearable without my sister. Well, last night my stepmom made a special dinner for her birthday. After the accident, I stopped eating dinner with the rest of my family. It just feels wrong eating without my sister at the table, so I eat alone in my room. Well, my dad insisted I eat with them downstairs. I protested, but he begged me. Dinner started off normally. My stepmom announced to my brothers, 8M, 5M, and I that she was pregnant. My brothers were really happy and asked for the gender of the baby. My stepmom excitedly said that it was a girl. My brothers kept talking about how excited they were about getting a younger sister. My stepmom mentioned how they could help decorate her nursery. I looked up and asked her which room would be the nursery. She excitedly said that she was going to use my twin sister's room. She mentioned how she already started removing things from her room in the morning and putting them in the attic. I asked her why she didn't bother telling me before she went ahead and started moving my sister's stuff. It was a big deal to me because aside from me, no one has been in her room since she passed. Sometimes when I miss her, I sit in her room to feel closer to her, and some nights I fall asleep in her room. My stepmom got really defensive. She said that I needed to accept that she was having a baby and needed the empty room. I told her that I understood that she was pregnant, but a heads up would have been nice before she started removing things from my sister's room. She looked at me and said that she didn't need to tell me anything because she was the mother of the household. She said she was doing what was best in the interest of her baby, and she didn't need my negativity. I stayed silent trying to tune her out, but I snapped when she mentioned how I needed to accept my sister's death and move on. She said something along the lines of, "Your twin passed away and you need to accept that. It's hard, but you've got your father, your brothers, and I, plus you're getting a new sister who you can build an even stronger relationship with. You need to move on because nothing will bring your twin sister back." I knew I was getting angry, so I excused myself and left the table. My dad started yelling about how I was being dramatic and I needed to come back or I'd be grounded. I continued walking away until my stepmom said, "I don't understand what her problem is. She couldn't even bother to be happy about my pregnancy, but she's angry about me moving things out of an unoccupied bedroom." I turned around and stared at her in disbelief. My stepmom often acts like my twin sister never existed. An example, 2 months ago, I was at Walmart with my dad and stepmom. We were buying a birthday present for my younger brother and they got into a conversation with an older man. I wasn't paying much attention, but the old man asked my dad how many kids he had. My dad said he had 4 kids, but my stepmom responded saying, "Number 3. She does stuff like that all the time, which drives me insane." I started going off on her, and she sat there quietly. I mentioned how she's been the cause of every major traumatic event in my life. I reminded her that she knowingly started sleeping with a married man. She knew he had a wife and kids, but she didn't care. She broke up my family, sending my mom into a deep depression, which ultimately led her to move away. Then I reminded her that she was too preoccupied with ranting about how we disturbed her nap, which ultimately led to a car accident that had me hospitalized for weeks, and I lost my twin sister because of her carelessness. I told her that she had no right to just take things out of my sister's room, and I wasn't angry about her new baby, but the fact that she started boxing and removing stuff from my sister's room without even telling me in advance. Then, finally, I told her that it was cruel of her to tell me to move on from the traumatic death of my twin sister. She argued back that the accident happened and I was living in the past. She said, "Everything happens for a reason and God works in mysterious ways." I straight up asked her if she thought that my sister's death could not have been avoided, and she responded saying, "It was just unlucky fate." I reminded her that my sister would be alive if she wasn't distracted. My stepmom then told me that I make her feel like I wanted her to die instead. I just stayed silent, and she kept asking me if she was correct. I turned to walk away and my stepmom grabbed my arm. I asked her to let go and she kept saying, "You want me dead, don't you?" I stayed silent again, but she kept repeating it. I eventually got mad and truthfully told her that my life would have been easier that way. She started crying and my dad called me heartless. I did apologize a few minutes later, but my dad snapped and asked me to leave my stepmom alone. Since then, My dad has been giving me the silent treatment while my stepmom just avoids me. Now for some comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. You're definitely NTA. I'm really sorry for your loss. Your feelings are completely understandable. Your stepmom and dad are huge a-holes. Your stepmom for various reasons, including not stopping asking she shouldn't ask if she didn't want an answer. Your dad because he isn't protecting you and getting you the help you need. Can you talk with your mom about it? How involved is she? You're still her child. Is there any adult in your life that you trust and can help you? You need a mental health professional. You need tools to move forward. You have every right to be angry and feel what you feel. P.S. My mom is involved in my life. We text every day and try to FaceTime at least twice a week. But my sister's death was really hard on my mom. My mom's mental health has been rocky for the past 10 years, so I don't want to trigger anything by telling her how bad I'm hurting. A year after my parents got divorced, my grandpa got really sick. He was diagnosed with a terminal illness. My mom decided to go back to Europe to help take care of her dad and spend time with him. She wanted to take my sister and I with her, but my dad fought her in court. Ultimately, we had to stay with our dad in the US, but we traveled to France every summer. Even after my grandpa passed, my mom decided to stay in France. She told my sister and I that going back to the US would mentally destroy her. It was too many negative memories for her and she wanted to stay close to her mom. Aside from my mom and her family, all I've got is my friends. My dad was never close with his family. He's got an older brother that I've never met and I honestly don't know much about my grandparents. I wanted to look into therapy but my dad refused. He doesn't believe that it will be helpful and says that it will fill my brain with garbage. He said that if I needed some advice or counseling, I could talk to him or my pastor, which I don't feel comfortable doing. Comment 2. How was she not charged if her running a stop sign caused the death? OP, she's on probation and I think she also had to pay a fine. Comment 3. Your dad is worried therapy will illuminate to you just how awful of a human being and father he is. Do you have a plan to get out once you are an adult? Are you planning on attending college/university when you are 18? Can you move to France to be with your mom? If you don't have an escape plan yet, I suggest you work on one. Unfortunately, your dad has proven that nothing, not even the death of his child, is enough for him to side with you or fight for you against your stepmonster. Get your necessary documents, passport, birth certificate, social security card, and get a plan in place to leave as soon as you are 18. You are less than a year away. Get ready for it and bounce. OP. Thank you so much for the idea of an escape plan. I have dual citizenship, so I have thought about moving to France a lot, but honestly I don't think it's a good idea. I can speak French fluently and for the most part one can read it, but I can't write in French and my vocabulary isn't really expanded, if that makes sense. I do really well in casual/normal conversations, but since I'm only really around my family in France, I don't know bigger/more professional words in French, so I'm afraid that might be a problem if I try to find a job there. But I've looked into colleges in my state and toured some with my friends. I found one that I really like, so I plan on hopefully being able to attend once I graduate. My dad keeps all of my important documents, so I'll try to find a way to convince him to give them to me. Update. I'm sorry it took so long to get back to everyone, but a lot has happened in the last few months. To start, thank you all for the overwhelming support. I wasn't able to read most of the responses to my last post because I went to sleep after posting it. When I woke up, there were several viral TikTok videos about my situation. I didn't know about any of that, but my stepmom's younger sister saw one of the Reddit videos and sent it to their family group chat, and my stepmom saw the video and lost it when she read the comments. She took my phone, laptop, and grounded me right after I woke up. When my dad got home from work, he backed her up. Her entire family was furious and my dad got yelled at by her parents, and they tried to force me to take the post down, but I wouldn't give them my phone's password, so there's little they could do about that. They kept calling me insensitive and disrespectful for bringing strangers into a private matter. As a part of my punishment, I wasn't allowed to leave my room. They wouldn't allow me to use my phone or laptop to communicate with my mom at all. They said I could get those privileges back after they deemed that I learned my lesson. A week after everything, my stepmom lost her baby and she blamed me for it. She said I was causing the entire family too much stress. She just kept yelling at me that I did this to her, and she refused to even glance in my direction. She had a huge argument with my dad about how she wanted me gone. She ended up staying with her parents for the night, and my stepmom even tried to turn my younger brothers against me, and it worked with the older one. My dad tried to convince me to apologize to her, but I didn't even understand what I would be apologizing for. His wife's pregnancy was already high risk due to many other issues. She has miscarried 3 babies in the past 2 years. I don't know anything about her medical health, but I once overheard her talking on the phone about an abnormality she had that caused her to lose her other babies. And I just fell into a really bad place mentally after that. For days after everything happened with my family, I tried to take my life. My dad and stepmom went out with my brothers, and I tried to overdose on Benadryl. It was the most painful experience of my life. I didn't feel anything at first, but I eventually passed out. I don't know how long I was out, but when I woke up, I started throwing up. I was in so much pain and could barely move. I can't remember much, but I think I passed out again, and my little brother found me passed out and covered in vomit, and my dad ended up calling 911. I ended up in the ER. I can't remember everything because it was a blur, but I had to drink activated charcoal. They ran a bunch of tests, drew my blood, and gave me N4. I was hallucinating for hours, and I woke up in a different hospital. I lied to my doctors about everything because I didn't want to get in trouble, but I was still involuntarily sent to a psychiatric hospital anyways. My dad was against it, but I was there for a little over a week. I got into a lot of trouble for attempting to take my life. My dad didn't speak to me for a week after I came home. While I was gone, my dad read all my journals where I wrote about how much I hated myself, my life, and wished my sister was still alive. He also found out that I was hurting myself by reading it. He eventually made me read all the pages out loud to him, my stepmom, and my pastor gave me a 3-hour lesson on letting go of anger in the past. They also took away my door because I lost that privilege, and my stepmom made it verbally known that she didn't want me there anymore. My dad told me that he was going to send me to a behavioral camp/teen residential program for troubled kids, since I tried to take my life. I still didn't have any of my electronics back, and they refused to leave me alone for extended periods of time, so I had to stay in the living room all day and could only go in my room when it was time for bed. My dad made me keep my door open while I showered so my stepmom could monitor me. I wasn't allowed to play volleyball this year as a punishment, which really sucked. I just felt so stuck, and I knew that I'd be sent away to one of those awful camps. I've heard so many bad stories about them, so I took my stepmom's iPad in the middle of the night. I was able to call my best friend. I explained everything to her. She told her parents, and they agreed to help me. I packed a few bags, took a bunch of things that remind me of my sister, and planned to leave 3 nights later. I was able to get my birth certificate and social security card because I told my stepmom I needed them for a job interview at our church's daycare. She surprisingly gave them to me. For 2 nights, my best friend would drive to my house at around 3 a.m. to get some of my things and my sister's old stuff. And then on the 3rd night, I finally found where my dad was keeping my phone and laptop, so I took them back and I left with my best friend that night. I don't want to accidentally incriminate anyone, so I can't say too much about what happened the night I left or who I was with afterwards, but my dad tried to press charges on several people, but that went nowhere. He gave up on trying to get me to go home because my stepmom was happy with me gone anyways. It's been 3 months since I left. I'm happy to say that I'm safe. I haven't heard from my dad or his wife in weeks, and from what I've heard, they're not on good terms. I'm currently staying with my mom's cousin, but once I graduate high school, I plan on moving to Europe to be closer to my mom. I turned 18 today. I'm happy that I no longer have to legally see my dad again. Also, thank you for those who personally messaged me, gave me legal advice, or even suggested I look into pursuing a lawsuit against my stepmother. Please excuse any spelling errors. This brought back a lot of negative emotions. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. Okay. Read both stories, but where the fuck is your real mom in all this? No calls, emails, texts, nothing? She moved to Europe. Why can't you move to here and live with her and finish your education there? Or even more so, why didn't you move in with her after your twin sister died? Her daughter died. For some background, my dad cheated on my mom with my stepmom. They ultimately got divorced, which was really hard on our family. My mom ended up moving back to her home country in Europe. My twin sister and I had to stay with our dad. What is this "had to stay with your dad" thing at this point as well? You are driven to suicide and already moved out. I would have taken the fastest plane ticket and seen her because I would need her and she would need you after one of her daughters died. Well, whatever the case, good luck. It's just weird to me. I would rather fail a year of education and start over than live in that household. It's complicated. My mom and dad divorced when I was 8 years old. My mom moved to France a little after my 9th birthday. But before that, they had split custody. My mom tried to get full custody of us because she wanted to take us to France with her. But my dad fought her in court and he ended up winning. My dad is significantly wealthier than my mom, so he had better legal representation and tried to drag out the process for as long as possible. Ultimately, my dad was awarded full custody of us and we only got to see my mom during the summer when we visited her in France. We still kept in contact with her through calls and text messages throughout the year. After my sister's death, my mom did come to the funeral. She and I pleaded with my dad to allow me to live with her, but he wouldn't allow it and she didn't have the money to fight him in court. She tried reaching out to his pastor and his family to convince him, but they weren't interested in getting involved. My dad threatened to take legal action against her if she didn't leave his family alone. And after that, I didn't have regular contact with my mom because she was struggling with her mental health and alcoholism. But she's been to rehab, has been sober now for almost a year, and she's in therapy. We talk every day and she's been my rock through all of this. She's doing a lot better and came to see me last month for Thanksgiving and I've been staying with her cousin. That's been really nice. Now on to the next story. Story 3. I sided with my husband after my brother's fiancée tried to scare him in our garage. Hit her head when he shoved her against the wall in self-defense, then accused him of assault. Hello, everyone. I am 25F. My husband is 30M. My brother 32M. And his fiancée 31F recently came to visit us in our city. My partner and I are new homeowners, and they were staying with us for the first time. My brother's fiancée loves Halloween. She is also a Disney adult and has a childlike side to her which comes out sometimes. She's just super involved, absorbed when it comes to her interests. Anyway, I'm just sharing this for context because my perspective is that she often gets carried away, and I genuinely feel what I'm going to describe was the result of one of those moments where she just took it too far and suffered some negative consequences. She is, however, taking it as a very personal attack, so we disagree, and the disagreement resulted in my husband cutting their visit short. AKA, they were asked to leave. 31F has made comments more than a few times now since meeting him that my husband gives off a dark vibe. She is always comparing him to characters from various books she reads. It's not necessarily criticism. She always explains that they are compliments. Well, I'm not sure anymore. Her reasons for these comparisons are based on his looks, the general vibe he gives, and his tattoo. He only has one, but it's on his hand. During this recent visit, she mentioned she would love to see someone like him get scared because she can't imagine him getting startled or letting out a scream. Scaring him became her goal during her stay with us. None of us knew about it, not even my brother. The incident causing all the trouble is that she tried to jump scare my husband in the garage. It was dark, and she ambushed him in the garage while wearing a full outfit and mask when he was returning from a run. Well, he didn't let out the scream she wanted. He instinctively reacted by shoving her against the wall. She hit her head and was quite shaken up. Luckily, he realized very quickly by the sound she made that it likely wasn't an intruder. He switched the lights on and pulled her mask off. He told me he was very confused in the moment. Why would she attack him? My husband helped her inside, apologized, made her tea, and then called me. I was out with my brother. When we got home, I asked 31F if she was okay, and I said her prank was stupid to do because she could have gotten seriously hurt. I don't know if it was what I said that bothered her or if she was just waiting for her partner to come home, but she launched into crying about how my husband used an excessive amount of force, knowing it was most likely her just doing a harmless prank. In a nutshell, my husband asked her straightforwardly, "Are you implying I intentionally assaulted you?" She hesitated but chose to say, "Yes." My husband responded to that with, Get out of my house. I tried to smooth it, but my husband was adamant. If that's what she genuinely believes, she's not welcome to stay. 31F chose to stick to her accusation. I decided to side with my husband. My brother is angry with me. He thinks I should have tried to do damage control and let them stay by convincing my husband to lean more into apologizing and placating his fiancée, who was just recovering from the situation. He thinks this whole thing would have blown over if I'd helped my husband fold. I find this unfair. My brother was counting on me to handle all this. Yet he didn't speak up during the conversation or try to talk sense into his fiancée. My husband remained calm the entire time, but he obviously felt insulted by her remarks, and I think that's valid. Why should I have taken my brother's fiancée's side over my own husband's? Especially when I feel like she was wrong for doing all that, then turning around and accusing my husband of wanting to hurt her. My brother says I was short-sighted and should think of their upcoming wedding, but I think he is the one who needs to get his fiancée to apologize to my husband. Edit. I would like to clarify, when I meant I tried to smooth the situation, I was not taking 31F's side or doubting my husband in any way. I simply tried to get everyone to consider tabling this until emotions had cooled down. And by those emotions, I mean the hysterics of my brother's fiancée. My husband was calm throughout, although there was an obvious finality about his decision. He made his statement and disengaged. As mentioned, my brother looked to me, hoping I'd persuade my husband, but I didn't, so they had to leave. The costume. I mentioned in a comment that I didn't get an opportunity to ask that night if she bought an outfit specifically for this prank, or if it was my brother's Halloween costume. They go to adult Halloween parties and we're attending one this weekend, 2 hours from where we live. It was part of my brother's costume. A mask like a golden masquerade one, but with more coverage. It reminded me of the gold/jeweled animal masks from Squid Game, or something you'd wear to a Rothschild party in the 70s. And she had on a long robe/cloak with a hood. People ask me to update. I will do that. Please look at my comments, too, in case I already answered a question you might have, but I think these two were the ones I saw pop up the most. I'm sorry I can't keep up with all the comments. I really tried. I will be showing this thread to my brother. Update 1. I got a lot of messages requesting an update. I have never made one before, so I hope I'm going about this correctly. I tried to talk to my brother multiple times after the incident, but each attempt ended in silence because I refused to give in to his demands. He wanted my husband and me to apologize to his fiancée, starting with me downplaying the whole situation so she wouldn't feel bad about her prank. I hesitated to send him the Reddit post I'd made initially. I thought it might work against us and make things worse, but his total inability to reason with me or see the situation for what it was became beyond frustrating. Since I couldn't physically deliver a cold, hard slap to his face for asking me to be complacent in allowing my husband to be falsely accused of assault, I figured the next best thing would be for him to read all your comments. Following the advice I got here, I tried to get ahead of the situation by informing my parents. My dad, a reasonable and practical man, immediately sided with my husband. His comments were similar to what a lot of people here had said, focusing on how dangerous and reckless the prank was and the ramifications of being falsely accused of assault. My mom, who unfortunately has always favored my brother, suggested we at least hear her out, referring to my brother's fiancée. As livid as I was about her reaction, I wasn't surprised by it. My dad did try to shut down her skepticism, but she remained on my brother's side for a few days, until I showed them footage from my brother's Tesla, which he had tried to delete. The Sentry thing, sorry if I'm using the terminology incorrectly, I'm not a Tesla owner, recorded part of the interaction in the garage. Not the jump scare itself, but the aftermath, which was more crucial. My husband's account was confirmed. He used a measured amount of force to immobilize her and was prepared to escalate if necessary, which is beyond generous for someone to do in a situation like that and definitely not owed. Many of you speculated that she might have a fixation or even a crush on my husband, and I'm starting to reconsider some past interactions with that in mind. I also misunderstood what dark books she expressed she enjoyed and compared my fiancé to. I learned from comments here that they are actually a subtype of the romance genre. I didn't know she was comparing him to characters in romance novels because one of the characters I recall her comparing my husband to is from a book about dragons. I genuinely wish I still remember the names of the various characters she's mentioned over the month, so I could satisfy my own curiosity, but my brain glossed over the names during conversations. We have a group chat for the wedding which includes my brother, my parents, my brother's fiancée, and her parents. In that chat, I addressed the incident but didn't share the Tesla footage, only mentioned that it exists. Her parents didn't respond in the chat, though I know they saw the message. Later, her mom called mine. Apparently, they had no idea about the prank. It's hard to say whether they believe me or if they've taken their daughter's side after speaking with her. My brother's fiancée and my brother have both extended apologies to my husband and have requested our presence at their upcoming wedding. My parents, trying to keep the peace, have encouraged us to go, saying it's the honorable thing to do. So, for the sake of family formality, we've decided to attend. However, my husband has made it clear that we'll be there out of obligation. We will be keeping a distance from them going forward. We haven't explicitly stated it, but there will be no future invitations to our home, not even for the holiday dinner we had planned before all this happened. My husband is going to minimize all future interaction with my brother's fiancée. I don't think we'll ever trust her again. I'll try to spend some one-on-one time with my brother to gauge where we stand. Our relationship feels strained, and this incident has made me realize that I lost him to her long before this happened, something I hadn't fully recognized until now. Thanks to everyone for sharing your opinions. A reporter from a news outlet reached out to me, and I remember requesting that if anyone uses my story, I would like them to pass on the following sentiment. I hope that if you share my story, you can help highlight the dangers of ambush-style pranks. These types of pranks create a threatening environment and put everyone involved at risk of serious harm or injury. They are stupid and dangerous. No one should have to feel threatened or be put in a position where their safety is compromised for the sake of a prank. If that's the setup, then it's not a prank. Actions like these will always have consequences, some of which may be irreparable, and no prank is worth the risk of someone getting hurt. Edit. I understand people get curious and invested, but please consider this my final update. If necessary, I will update again in the future, but it will be unlikely, and I assure you it won't be anytime soon. I got a lot of DMs requesting updates on the previous post, so I thought I'd place this disclaimer here. Update 2. This is the last one for me, guys. I did read, or try to read, some of the books I got recommended that would show me what my husband is being compared to. I mostly did this for entertainment purposes. I think some fans of these books will get mad, but I'll just be honest. These books are not for me. I got up to book 3 in a Kotar, although my skimming increased with each book. I made it through a little bit of the 4th one, and that's when my brain just couldn't take anymore. I think my husband was supposed to be Reese, and after reading 3+ books, I don't quite see it. I found both Reese and Fair increasingly annoying as the books went on. I just DNF'd. They're not my people. If I had to pick, Azriel seemed a little more like my husband, maybe based on just looks/vibes that I got. I also read Fourth Wing, just the one book, and I won't be reading the rest of the series. I think my husband was supposed to be Zayden. He's actually more of a Liam personality-wise. These were the main 2 books. Anyway, the actual update. My brother and his fiancée got married. She was pregnant. My mom had already suspected, apparently, but the pregnancy was announced during the wedding. The pregnancy has made my parents kind of soften. My mom is distracted about becoming a grandma. It hasn't changed how I feel. I still think it's a mistake that he's marrying her, and I'm worried about him, but I also don't have any intense feelings. It's his life. My husband didn't have to attend the wedding. We all said he could skip it, but he wanted to accompany me. Nothing dramatic happened at the wedding. We did keep a bit of a distance, so maybe we missed any drama if there was some. I did learn something disturbing from someone who has spent more time with my brother's wife. She had apparently made some disgusting comments about my husband in the past. She had said he looks like a Lezen comics character. It feels nasty to direct quote her, so I will just paraphrase. She basically implied he is so assaultable and or would be doing the assaulting or something. I don't know if any of this has to do with the context of these types of comics. This was all apparently said in a WhatsApp chat, but no proof of the conversation because the person who told me said she got a new phone and didn't back up her WhatsApp. I don't have any reason to believe she would make this up, though. I didn't confront my brother's wife about this comment because it was said a long time ago and it just doesn't seem worth bringing up. We have just continued our no contact. Like I said, pretty boring update, but it's truly my final one now that the wedding is over. Now on to the next story. Story 4. I, 28, F have always been child-free. Ever since I was 16 years old, I knew that I would not and could not raise kids. I have always been vocal about the fact that I would never have children. In every single relationship of mine, I told my partners that I would not be having kids, and if that was something they expected from me or for themselves, I was not the right partner for them. Some of my partners were okay with this, but for some, it was a deal breaker and we parted ways amicably. I was okay with it. Just because I didn't want this for myself or had envisioned my life a certain way did not mean others had to conform to it. But I have never been dishonest about what I want from my life. I have been upfront about this aspect of my life, and I have told every single partner that this is something non-negotiable for me. Some people ask me why I don't want kids, and I know it's because they want to convince me otherwise and tell me all about the joy of motherhood. But I hate these intrusive questions. To me, it shouldn't matter to anyone why I don't want kids. I am child-free, and that is the extent of the information I owe you. There is no need for anyone to know the rationale behind it. And if I'm being honest, the reasons are rooted in a lot of trauma that I don't feel comfortable recounting. I have spent years and a considerable amount of effort to come to a place that feels better mentally, and I don't want to ruin all those years of progress by dwelling in the past for no reason. So whenever someone asks me why I don't want kids, I don't indulge them with any answer. I simply either refuse to respond or tell them it's none of their business. I have my reasons and they have no right to poke into it. This has always been my stance and most people have respected it, so I never anticipated that I would be blindsided one day. When I met my husband, David M., 33, 3 years ago and we started dating, I told him from the outset that I wasn't someone who would have kids. He was always on board with it, at least that's what he said, and I believed him. There was no reason for me not to believe a 30-year-old man who sounded so sure about what he wanted from life. I think I told him by the third or fourth date that if he wanted to take things further, he should know that I was child-free and nothing on earth could make me want to raise a child. He seemed okay with it, and that topic was never brought up for discussion in the next few months. I remember around the 1-year mark we were having a general conversation, and he asked me why I was against having children and a family of my own. I wanted to tell him, but it was too much for me. Revisiting that trauma has always been detrimental to me, and I just didn't want to go through that mentally. I told him so. I said that I had my reasons, and it wasn't that I wasn't comfortable sharing them. I trusted him, but I didn't want to because it brought up a lot of pent-up thoughts and feelings, and dealing with them was something I didn't want at that point in time. He hugged me, consoled me, and never pressed the question again. Ever since then, the topic of children never came up again, and I was so grateful to God for giving me a partner who understood my boundaries and respected them. Our relationship continued for another year, and then he asked me to marry him. I was overjoyed and I loved him a lot, but I asked him again if he was sure about this because my stance on children would not change. He told me that he had never been sure of anything in his life, and if he had wanted to leave because of my decision, he would have left on the fourth date itself. He gave me a sappy. I now think it's sappy because of what's happened in the last few days. Initially it felt amazing and romantic. Speech about how I am the love of his life and he would never let me go over children because any family he wanted was a family that had me in it. We got married and it was amazing. It was mostly his family and my friends who came. I am not close to my family, and I am completely no contact with my mother, so I had not invited them. The ceremony was sweet, and it has only been 6 months since we got married, but everything seemed perfect. I have a good relationship with his family, we meet regularly. Both of us have good jobs and we do well for ourselves. We don't really want for anything, and I know it sounds privileged and hoity-toity, but it is what it is. And now I will have to throw everything away because David has changed completely, and I don't even know what to do anymore. It's like my life has changed completely, and everything is out of my control. 2 weeks ago, things changed. I received a DM from my sibling on Instagram. I don't know how she found me or why she was looking for me, but it sent me into a downward spiral of panic and guilt. I scheduled an urgent appointment with my therapist. I was having a full-blown panic attack, and my mental health was in shambles. I sat on the floor clutching my hair and panting. David wasn't home at the time, and it felt as if I would collapse. It took me a long time to feel a little better. I told my therapist about the text and my reaction to it, and she told me it was because I had repressed all these feelings for so many years that a single trigger brought everything out. She said I hadn't taken the time to process my feelings about my childhood and the abuse I faced, which is why I had such a visceral reaction to a simple DM. The DM wasn't anything but a, "Hi, how are you doing?" She told me it was high time I dealt with all these emotions and memories, and that suppressing and ignoring them was not the answer I was looking for, and that it would never heal me. She told me to talk to someone about it, if not her. That's when I decided I would finally tell David about why I am the way I am. I had other friends I could confide in, but the emotional understanding I share with David is not something that can be matched. At least that's what I thought in that moment. I thanked her and texted David that I needed to talk to him about something urgently. He said he had to go on a very important work trip for a week and was actually packing his bags as we were texting. I knew then that this discussion had to wait because it needed a lot of time and patience for me to be able to express what I had gone through. He left for the trip, and that 1 week was excruciating for me. I couldn't tell him over text, obviously, and I didn't want to do it over a call either. I didn't respond to the DM because I don't want to allow that part of my life to re-enter. Finally, David got home, and I ran to him and sobbed like a baby. He got so scared and held me for God knows how long. I just got it all out. I didn't have it in me to hold it back any longer. I told him to sit down, that I needed to tell him everything, and I just couldn't wait any longer. I was the eldest of 8 siblings. My dad died when I was 2 years old, and after that, my mother went into a spiral of depression and substance abuse. She was there but hardly. It was as if I had raised myself. Every few years, she would get knocked up with no father in sight and would refuse to either abort the kid or give it up for adoption. She was the textbook definition of a deadbeat mother, and I had to raise her litter even though I was a child myself. As of today, my siblings would be F, 23, M, 20, F, 17, M, 16, M, 14, and M, 14. They're twins, and F, 12. In the initial few years after Dad's death, Mom was okay. Like, she would be absent, but at least she could hold a job and cook a meal and feed me. It wasn't ideal, not in the least. There was no nurturing, no care, nothing. But she kept me alive, and honestly, that was all I had begun to expect from her even as a little kid. Then my sister, Cynthia, was born, and things began to get worse. She was a cutie and an easy child. She didn't cry much, and she wasn't fussy at all. Even then, Mom expected me to help her. I was just 5 years old at that time, but I didn't complain. She was like my little doll, and I loved playing dress-up with her. I would help Mom with little tasks like changing her diaper and watching over her when she was asleep. Not much, but if I knew what it would ultimately lead to, I wouldn't have done a single thing at all. Gradually, Mom started pulling away from her, and it was only me who was with her. By the time she turned 1, Mom had started bringing up the excuse that only I was the one who could make her eat. I was the one she listened to, so naturally, all the responsibility fell on me. And sadly enough, this was true, and it was so because I took time with her, and Mom could not be bothered. I was the scapegoat. It was only years later that I realized this was weaponized compliance. I liked doing stuff for Cynthia, and it never felt wrong. I mean, that's how I had grown up, and I thought all older siblings raised their younger ones. By the time she got pregnant with Warren, M, 20 now, she had completely lost it. I was 8 years old when he was born, and Cynthia was 3. Mom asked me to take care of Warren as well because I had done such a good job with Cynthia. I wanted to resist then because I had started school, and I used to enjoy hanging out with my friends at times. I took Cynthia along, but with Warren, all my playtime was restricted. I told her that I wouldn't help her, and I remember she beat me so hard. I was bruised and blue on my back. My mother was abusive, but she was also smart. She never hit me in places that would be visible to the general eye. It was always in concealed places, and she used my example to discipline Cynthia at first and the rest later on. Anytime Cynthia would refuse, she used to tell her that she would hit her, just like she hit me. It was horrible for us, and the cycle kept on continuing. I had no life and I was parentified to the point of death. I couldn't meet friends because I had to cook food for the kids. I couldn't participate in any extracurricular activities because I had to help the kids with homework. I had to clean the house. I was a maid and it was horrible. I had no respite, and she had somehow poisoned all the kids against me. She used to badmouth me any time she was sober, which was not often because she was always high or away. None of the kids liked me, and that made it all the more frustrating. I kept on pushing as much as I could, but when she got pregnant for the final time when I was around 15 or 16, I had had enough. She came home and announced that we were going to have another sibling, and literally not a single person in the room was happy. It was evident from our faces. Then, in a fit of rage, she started yelling at everyone, especially me, saying that I had to do this for her and whatnot. I told her no. I simply told her that I would not do anything for any of the kids anymore. I was exhausted, and it was not my job to look after the brood she produced. That was the last day I did anything for them. I didn't help with homework, I didn't change diapers, I didn't do anything. I just cooked for everyone because I had been doing that since I was a kid and they were used to my food. Plus, I'm not the kind of person to starve someone, but that was the extent of it. When Mom realized what was happening, she started hounding Cynthia and Warren to pick up the slack. It was a mess, but at least I was safe. I know it came at the cost of Cynthia and Warren, but I honestly don't feel any guilt for it. If I hadn't taken a stand for myself back then, I would have been in the same rut. When my youngest sister was born, my mother came to me and told me to end my tantrum and help her out because I had been the one looking after everyone before this, and that she couldn't do it without my help. I flatly refused. She told me I had no option or she wouldn't feed me, and I told her that if she tried anything of that sort, I would complain to the authorities. That shut her up for a while, but she started neglecting the baby. She wouldn't feed her. She would keep wailing in her crib, and it was a nightmare to live in that house. I had had enough. I was 16 and I decided I couldn't do it any longer, so I ran away. I ran away in the middle of the night with some money and never looked back. I called CPS to inform them of what was happening, and that was the last I heard of them. I never tried contacting them, and they never tried contacting me. I don't know what happened to my siblings, and I never tried reaching out because if I did, I would have felt a sense of responsibility and would have gone back. But I needed to be a little selfish for myself, or I would have ended up being a carer for my siblings for the rest of my life. I finished school, went to college, worked hard, and made a life for myself that was completely cut off from my family. All these years, I never told anyone what I had gone through because it was too traumatic for me to even recall. I was abused and harassed mentally and physically, and I had to slog for hours every day to make sure everyone slept with a full tummy. That was when I realized I had raised enough kids in this life and didn't have the stamina to do it anymore. I was done with being a parent, and I wanted to be and remain an individual for the rest of my life. By the time I finished telling David the entire story, I was sobbing like a little girl, and he held me so close the entire time. I felt relief like I had never felt before, and it was such a surreal experience. I had cried so much that I had a massive headache. He took me to bed, I took some meds, and I fell asleep instantly. I felt grateful that I had a husband who could understand what I was going through, that I had found a partner I could share anything with. I never knew I was wrong, and that the one person who had vowed to protect me and support me would be the one to break my trust and shatter my confidence in people completely. When I got up the next morning, I realized David was not in the room. I knew he didn't have work because he had come back from the trip the previous night. I made my way downstairs, and I heard him talking to his mother. I was about to go back to my room when I heard him say my name. I should not have eavesdropped. That's wrong. But the moment I heard him say my name, I had a sinking feeling in my stomach. I thought he was going to disclose everything to my MIL, which I didn't want at all. I had shared the most traumatic part of my life with him in confidence, and I didn't want anyone else to know the show that my life was for so many years. I tried to stand there and listen to what he was saying, and now I think that it would have still been okay if he was just telling MIL about what I told him. I could have somehow managed to excuse that, But what I heard completely broke me. It has been a few days since that phone call, and I still don't know what to do. He wasn't just disclosing everything to his mother. He also said that had he known I had faced all this and felt so strongly about being child-free, he wouldn't have married me. He said I had trapped him by not telling him everything about my past sooner, and he feels like he has wasted all this time with me. He even went as far as to say that he was considering leaving me because he couldn't waste his time with a selfish woman who had curbed her maternal instinct on a whim. I didn't have the heart to listen to more of what he was saying. I had already heard enough. He thought all those years were nothing, and what I faced was a joke. He completely downplayed and disregarded everything I went through and called my decision to be child-free a whim. I couldn't even believe he could be so insensitive. He had been so good to me when I told him about my mother and my siblings, and now I see this completely different and vicious side of him. I really don't know what he means when he says I trapped him. He had always known that I would not have kids. I had repeatedly told him, and I had repeatedly asked him if he was okay with it, and he always pretended to be okay. As a matter of fact, if he had a problem with my choices and wanted a large family for himself, he should have been upfront about it. He is the one who wasted my time, not the other way around. And the most disgusting part is that he came upstairs a few minutes later and was so nice to me. His behavior made me second-guess myself, and I genuinely thought I might have heard wrong. I just can't look at him the same way again. He is an actor, and he has deceived me for far too long, and I cannot keep falling for his pretenses any longer. I just don't know what to do. I have had such a hard time these last few days that I don't even have the energy or the strength to confront him and tell him that I know what he said to his mother. It is just too isolating and depressing, and he knows something is wrong. He has tried talking to me about it, but I just brushed the topic aside, though I know I can't keep avoiding it any longer. I just don't understand why he would even agree to marry me or get into a relationship with me when he knew I didn't want kids. And he did. It just makes no sense to me. Sometimes I think maybe it's his MIL influencing him, but he has never seemed to be the kind to be influenced by other people. But then, what do I know? I clearly don't know the man I married, and at this point, nothing should surprise me, I guess. I just came here to vent. I don't know whether I should run, confront him, or just let it be for the time being. I feel stuck, and I need help to get out of this rut. Update 1. I read all the comments carefully, and I am so glad I did because they made me so much more vigilant and aware of what David could really do. A few of you guessed correctly. He had planned to get me pregnant all along. I haven't confronted him yet, but now there is no other option but to do so because I found that all the protection in his closet was tampered with. Every single one had been pierced. I cannot describe the rage I felt. I feel so unsafe in my own house. I can't even confront him. I don't know what else he is capable of. I just know I can't stay here with him any longer. I tried to gauge his reaction and tested him a little. I told him that since the text from Cynthia on Instagram, I've been feeling very paranoid, and I had a session with my therapist as well. I told him that all that trauma has come back, and I now want to take actual and concrete steps to ensure I don't accidentally end up pregnant. We were having dinner when I said this, and he slowly lowered his fork and asked me what I meant. I told him I was planning on getting my tubes tied. That way, there would be no risk at all. I wanted to provoke him a little more, so I also said that since we're both child-free, he could also get a vasectomy done so that we're both sure and there's just no room for surprises. I then said that the vasectomy was a better idea because it's an easier surgery, and the recovery time isn't long either. He looked at me as if I had asked for his lungs. He didn't say a word, and I knew then that he was going to do everything in his power to stop me from getting my tubes tied. And I was right. He said there was no need for all this, and that I was getting worked up for no reason. He told me surgery was an unnecessary expense, especially since we were always careful anyway. I brushed the whole topic aside and told him I wasn't certain, but it was just a thought that came to me. This happened 3 or 4 days ago, and he has initiated intimacy every single day since then. I think he wants to get me pregnant as soon as he can, and he's getting desperate now because I said I was contemplating surgery. So many of you guessed this right, but I didn't want to believe it. This man, this marriage, and this house. None of them are safe for me anymore, and I need to make an exit plan as soon as I can. Update 2. I confronted him. I hadn't planned to, but I did. I just couldn't keep it in any longer. He was getting very persistent and I was getting annoyed, and then I reached my breaking point. This was the biggest fight of our entire relationship, and I know there's no coming back from this. I told him I heard him talk to his mom and what he had to say to her. He tried to deflect the blame and said I was in the wrong for listening to a private conversation between him and his mother. I told him to cut the act because he had been fooling me the entire time, telling me he was okay with me being child-free while secretly planning to get me pregnant all along. He told me I was falsely accusing him and had no proof that this was his intention. So I just opened his drawer and threw the stuff in his face. He turned as white as a ghost. He didn't say anything for a long time, but I was too angry to be quiet. I was screaming at him like a woman possessed, and I told him he had no business ruining my life and cheating me when he wasn't okay with my decisions. He broke down and told me he loved me and didn't want to let me go, and he thought that maybe he could convince me eventually. He said that all women want to be mothers. They just think they don't. So, apart from being an absolute a-hole, my husband is also regressive and misogynistic, and I told him exactly that. I asked him what his plan was because he knew I was dead set against having a baby. He would have known quite early on that the convincing wouldn't work on me. What was his plan of action then? He admitted what all of you were fearing. He said he thought that he would accidentally get me pregnant, and then I wouldn't have gone for an abortion. Either way, I had no words left. I had hoped he wouldn't stoop to this level, but with this statement, he proved that he was the scum of the earth and that our relationship was not salvageable at all. He apologized and said he would never do anything to betray my trust again and begged me for another chance. But I just went to a different room and locked myself in. I am done with him and I am done with this drama. All I've ever wanted was a life of peace. I couldn't get it when I was a kid, and I haven't gotten it as an adult. I am sick of the hypocrisy and double standards of the world, and I think I am better off alone. I cannot deal with this. I cannot trust David again, and no matter what he does, I cannot forgive him. This is just unforgivable in my eyes. There is no coming back from this. Update 3. I have moved out and filed for divorce. I knew I had to do it, but David was in denial and kept asking me to forgive him. I didn't. His entire family got involved, and they all came down for an intervention and hounded me. But I was just not in the mood for any kind of attempt to save the marriage. The marriage was a sham and David is a cheat. I didn't want anything to do with him. Mel went as far as to say I was punishing her poor son for what my mother did to me. But David glared at her and she shut up. I told her she had no business poking her nose into my personal life. She said that she was family, and I told her not for long. I asked all of them to leave, and even though they resisted, I stayed firm. I have had enough. I looked for a studio and I found one within my budget. When I was moving my stuff out, David looked at me in disbelief. I think that was when it hit him that this was real and there was no coming back. He begged me to try couples counseling or to go for a break rather than a divorce, but I told him there was no point in holding on to a dead relationship and that the only reason he wanted us to work out so badly was because he knew that he was at fault and it was only because of him that things had gotten so bad. Now that I have moved into my new place, I just feel numb. I hope I get used to this, and I hope there is something better in store for me. As of now, I am just glad I am safe and have exited yet another toxic relationship. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Stepmom's behavior at Disney World. My 32F father, in his 60s, has been married to Sasha, fake name, in her 40s, for almost a decade. I was already an adult when they started seeing each other, so I never had much of a relationship with her. That said, Sasha was nice and thoughtful, though a bit annoying at times, and I never had any problems with her. I now have a husband, 34M, and 2 kids, 9M and 4F. Sasha is very fond of my children, especially my daughter. That became very suffocating pretty quickly, so we started setting some boundaries. She never overstepped them. In January, my father and Sasha decided to go on a trip to Disney World and invited us to join them. We decided to go to celebrate our son's 9th birthday. I quickly regretted coming along. Sasha spent the entire trip fussing over my daughter in ways that overstepped almost every boundary we'd set. Examples include, Sasha bought a mini ear tiara. She wanted me to buy my daughter an identical one so they could match. My daughter didn't like the tiara, so I bought her a Donald Duck hat instead. Sasha got her the tiara anyway and was upset that she didn't want to wear it. My father and Sasha went shopping in between parks. I told them not to buy my kids anything, as we still had shopping to do and didn't want to risk making our bags too heavy. Still, Sasha returned with 5 bags of clothing for my daughter and 2 for my son, saying she couldn't resist. My daughter wanted a Belle costume to wear at the parks, as that's her favorite princess. Sasha tried to convince us to get her an Ariel costume instead because that's her favorite. I explained that we never watched The Little Mermaid at home because my daughter is scared of Ursula. Sasha insisted on taking dozens of pictures with my daughter in front of the castle at Magic Kingdom. She also took some with my son, but not nearly as many. She tried to convince us to take our daughter to Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. We refused because the prices are crazy and we'd already bought her the Belle costume. She offered to pay, but we held our ground. I later found out Sasha tried to make a reservation anyway, but there was no availability. When we took our daughter to Slinky Dog Dash, her first roller coaster, Sasha tried to sit next to her. My daughter wanted to sit with me, so we switched. She tried to do the same thing in other attractions. At the Muppets Theater, she tried to get my daughter to sit in her lap. Sasha also tried to pick her up while we met some of the characters. There were more instances. The final straw for me, however, was the last park day of the trip. We were at Magic Kingdom. My husband suffered a minor injury, and I had to take him to the first aid station. The kids wanted to go to the Peter Pan ride, so my dad and Sasha offered to take them in the meantime. However, according to my father, the line was too long, so instead, Sasha suggested the Little Mermaid ride, assuring my kids Ursula wasn't on it. Actually, there's a pretty big Ursula animatronic there. My daughter was still sobbing and hugging her brother when we reunited. When we flew back home, I told my father that we'd no longer take our children on trips with Sasha due to her behavior. He got extremely angry. He said his wife loved my kids, thought about what they'd like to do at every moment of the trip, and that we should be grateful to have her in our lives. I lost my temper at that. I told him Sasha was a creep and that they should be grateful I was still okay with them even seeing my children after her actions during the trip. We ended up having a huge fight. After that, it's been weeks since we returned home, and my father is still angry at me and my husband. Sasha has texted me a few times. She says she's sorry if she made me uncomfortable, but that she loves my kids and hopes to use the trip to spend more time with them. To be honest, I don't think I'm the A here, but I do think I might have overreacted. I believe there's a chance Sasha's actions were motivated by love and she truly did have good intentions. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. You're NTA because you have your children's best interests at heart, but it may benefit you and your dad's relationship to understand why Sasha is like she is. Overstepping boundaries is easier for someone when they believe it's for a good cause or to have fun in a safe way. Does she have kids of her own? Can she not have kids of her own? Does she maybe see the kids as her grandkids? It's a difficult one, but getting to the source of that could make the whole thing healthier. But on the other hand, it's not your job to put that work in when it's your father's relationship. All I'd suggest you do is explain to your father you set boundaries, and regardless of intention, Sasha broke them, which you do not condone. Good luck. P. Sasha doesn't have children of her own. My father has me and my sister and has always been open about not wanting more kids. They're married, so I'm assuming she doesn't want kids either. I also don't think she sees my kids as grandchildren. She's always referred to herself as Aunt Sasha instead. When I got pregnant with my son, she commented she was too young to be a grandma. Comment 2, NTA. You set some pretty clear boundaries that Sasha kept crossing the entire trip. Even your daughter seems to not be particularly receptive towards her. Also, your son can probably pick up on this favoritism, and that's not good for him either. I don't mean to do armchair psychology, but this reads like Sasha has always wanted a young daughter and is using yours to live vicariously through. Hence why she kept trying to push things that your daughter doesn't like onto her. Tiara, Little Mermaid ride, etc. OP. My son doesn't like Sasha. I'm not sure why, but I think he gets that she favors my daughter. He's also very protective of his sister, so her discomfort could also be a reason. Update 1, March 4th, 2024. Hey everyone, I'm ready to give you an update. I read your comments and came to the following conclusion. As much as Sasha's behavior towards my children angered me and freaked me out, calling her a creep was the wrong reaction to have. That said, I think it's best for my family to distance itself from Sasha for the time being, and at the very least, my previous decision to avoid future trips with her based on the Disney trip is still the best course of action. Sasha's pushiness, tendency to override my and my husband's parenting, and blatant favoritism toward my daughter were much worse when the kids were younger. After my daughter's birth, she began to focus too much attention on her and almost none on my son. I gave more examples of that in the comments on my original post. That's the reason we set boundaries in the first place. The way she fusses over my daughter also bothers me. When we had the boundary conversation with my father and Sasha, she told us that she'd always wondered what having a daughter would be like. She'd also defined herself as child-free before, so I was never certain what to think of that. Either way, that reassured me and my husband that we were doing the best for our kids. Those boundaries had never been overstepped. Then we went on the Disney trip and most of them were completely ignored. Many of you pointed out that she might have gotten carried away or that Disney is exciting and she wanted to make sure my kids had the best experience, etc. There are two things I'll say to that. The first is that whatever Sasha's reasons were, she still overstepped our boundaries. When we first set those, we told her that doing so would have consequences. Disney or not, I don't see a reason to make an exception. Secondly, she wasn't trying to ensure my kids had the best experience. She was pushing them to fulfill her fantasy of what their Disney trip should look like. She repeatedly ignored my children's wishes in favor of her own, despite them both being very clear about what they wanted and didn't want. Sasha also continually favored my daughter, including during my son's birthday, and fussed over her in ways that made her uncomfortable. And I still haven't forgiven the Little Mermaid thing. My daughter is a bit shy and takes a while to open up to most people, so knowing her trust was broken like that angers me in ways I can't describe. To put it in simpler terms, my children aren't props, and whoever treats them as such will, at the very least, be put in timeout. I called my father and Sasha on Saturday. I apologized for calling Sasha a creep but told them that we needed some time apart. They won't see my family until my younger sister's birthday in late April. If that goes well, they'll be invited to my daughter's 5th birthday party in May. After that, we'll slowly work on reestablishing contact. I also said that if they overstepped our boundaries again, the consequences would be more dire. My father didn't take it well. I don't care. Sasha sent me a text with more apologies followed by a request to at least FaceTime my kids every now and then. I said no. And to those who said my controlling behavior ruined the trip, my kids had an amazing time at Disney World. They're both still talking about it. My daughter keeps asking us to put her pictures with the characters she met up on the wall, and my son says he had the best birthday ever. I think that's it. Thank you for your advice and support on my first post. Relevant comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. You protected your children and that's the best thing you can do in any situation. I'm glad they're still talking about the trip despite favoritism and the Ursula animatronic, which means you and your husband managed to outshine all of that with wonderful memories. For the possible reconciliation, everyone can act normal for a day, the birthday in late April, especially if they know there's a goalpost on that day. It's the behavior over time that counts. If they're still messaging you requesting FaceTime calls and calling you unreasonable despite you clearly saying you want NC, you could begin a tally. 1 point for each request, and when it's X amount of points, they'll have their timeout extended because they obviously don't understand boundaries yet. OP. That's great advice. We don't want to go NC, but we will if our boundaries are disrespected. Knowing my father, a tally wouldn't be well received. I'm doing my best to avoid turning this into a bigger fight, but that kind of system would probably make things worse. It might be worth a shot, though. I'll talk to my husband about it. Comment 2. Thanks for the update. You are doing the right thing and are prepared if your father and Sasha keep trying to push against your boundaries. Make sure anyone who might take their side is fully aware of the consequences of trying to mediate or help them. OP, thankfully, no one's taking their sides. At most, my sister said I'd been cruel to them. Update 2. May 3rd, 2024. Last time I posted here, I mentioned that my father and Sasha wouldn't see my children until my younger sister's birthday. The party took place last weekend, and we didn't attend. These 2 months of NC worked fine, but not great. My father respected my wishes, to my surprise, but Sasha kept trying to find ways to talk to my children. She'd call me under the guise of needing to ask me something, only to later say, "By the way, are the kids around? I want to say hi." Every time she tried that, I'd remind her of what I told her back in March. This must have happened almost a dozen times, which was enough for my husband and I to start debating on skipping the party. After speaking to our kids, we decided not to go. They both said they missed my father but clearly didn't want to see Sasha. We thought about attending and just distancing them from her while there, but risking making our children uncomfortable wasn't worth it. My son even asked if we could see their aunt somewhere else without Sasha around. My husband and I explained the situation to my sister. She was upset, but mostly because she hadn't seen the kids in a while. We all went to dinner at her favorite restaurant the day after her party. I also called my father and told him we wouldn't go to the birthday party. He reacted better than I expected, but we still had a short fight about it. He claimed that I had promised we'd let Sasha see the kids after 2 months, called me unfair, and said he was entitled to have a relationship with his grandchildren. I immediately denied that. Though I tried to sugarcoat it at first, I eventually gave him the truth. My kids don't want to see his wife, and I won't force them to. My father and I had a long talk. I told him how much Sasha's actions at the Disney trip upset my children, as well as how uncomfortable me and my husband felt. I admitted I don't trust his wife at all, and I don't think I ever truly will. He said that while he still thought I was overreacting, he understood I wanted to protect my kids. My dad also told me about how these 2 months of NC were for them. Apparently, Sasha started talking about my kids, mostly my daughter, a lot more than usual. She'd mention things and places she thought they would like. My father was aware of one of the times she called me but thought it was a one-time thing. She wanted to give my daughter a gift at my sister's birthday party. He said he didn't know why. At one point, she told him she wanted to plan another family vacation with the kids, even though I told them they're not traveling with Sasha anymore. Learning all of that just made me more certain that I can't trust this woman around my children. For now, I intend to remain LC with my father and NC with Sasha. My daughter told me she wanted her grandpa at her birthday party a few weeks from now, so I told him that he was invited but Sasha wasn't. He agreed. To be honest, I don't trust my father after all of this. I'm allowing him to come because that party will take place at my home, which is easier for me to control. If he tries to bring Sasha, they'll both be kicked out, and it will take a long time for me to consider letting him near my kids again. My father hasn't told me how his wife is reacting to this. My sister told me that during her party, Sasha asked her to tell me she wanted to talk. I'm not reaching out to her, nor do I plan to respond if she attempts to contact me. Both me and my husband have blocked her. My children are doing great. They still talk about how much fun they had at Disney. My daughter's been saving money, putting coins in her piggy bank for us to go back. On a completely different note, I'm pregnant again. This was completely unplanned. I always said I wanted 2 kids at most, and the third would have to be a huge accident. But my husband and I are ecstatic. I'm still in the first trimester, so not a lot of people know. We're brainstorming ways to tell our kids. Overall, I'm happy with my life right now, and as much as I wish this Sasha situation had never happened, I feel like a better parent after dealing with it. I have never been more confident in my abilities to protect my children than I am now. I don't think I'll update again anytime soon. Once again, thank you for all the support you've given me. I wish you the best. Edit. As much as I appreciate your insight, allow me to explain why I won't change my mind on this subject. First of all, I'm not concerned about avoiding too many events. My paternal family is smaller than my maternal side, and there aren't many get-togethers in the first place. The only reason my dad even went to my sister's birthday party was because she wanted to introduce her boyfriend to him. My father has also seen my children without Sasha countless times before, so that's not a concern either. I don't dislike Sasha. Even if I did, I've always been very careful not to let my opinions on others affect my children, specifically because I aim to teach them to be polite. But my kids are allowed to express themselves. If they don't like person X, they don't have to be around person X. It doesn't matter how much person X wants to see them. I'm not teaching them to sacrifice their comfort for someone who doesn't actually care about them. And no, Sasha doesn't actually care about my children, nor has she tried to build a relationship with them. Instead, she tries to push them, especially my daughter, to do what she wants to see them doing. Almost none of her actions during the Disney trip were for my daughter's benefit. They were for hers. Sasha is not my children's grandmother. They don't see her as such. She doesn't want to be seen as such. She calls herself Aunt. Her actions weren't doting, nor did they have anything to do with her not being able to formulate relationships with children. She doesn't care about my daughter's happiness. She just treats her like a doll. My son, meanwhile, is cast aside. If someone overwhelms one of my children and ignores the other on his birthday, they don't need to be around my kids. To answer the other part of your question, I have spoken with Sasha. It was the whole point of the boundary conversation. I communicated what was wrong and what she could do to improve. Whenever I try to set boundaries, Sasha disrespects them. She does not listen to me. It's not my job to teach her how to build a relationship with my kids any more than I already have. That's the point of this NC policy. Sasha doesn't listen to me or my children. If my kids didn't mind, I'd consider other ways of approaching this, but they do mind, and I refuse to force them to be around someone who disrespects them. And the fact that she refuses to listen to my children and insists on pushing her fantasies onto my daughter is enough for me to go and see. I have no intention of updating anytime soon, nor am I looking for any more advice. Thank you for your concern. Update 3, September 3rd, 2024. First of all, my father didn't bring Sasha to my daughter's birthday party back in May. I didn't really think he would. I'd made it very clear I wouldn't tolerate that. But I'd be lying if I said your comments didn't make me a little paranoid. Secondly, I've just entered my 3rd trimester, and the baby will be here in November. The kids are ecstatic. I'm having another girl, but my husband and I are not sharing the sex until she's born. This has nothing to do with our families. It's just something we've also done with our first 2. Everyone, including Sasha, knows I'm pregnant. We announced it a couple of months ago. I had no problem with my father telling her, though he did ask if he could. I didn't hear much about her reaction, but according to my father, she was happy for me. My children still don't want to see Sasha, and I'm still not forcing them to. I've unblocked her and put her on mute instead, but she hasn't made any attempts to contact me. We've continued meeting my father without his wife, and I think it's been working out. My relationship with him isn't fantastic, but it's much better than it was earlier this year. Last week, I saw Sasha for the first time in months. My cousin threw a party at her place. My husband and I attended, as did my father and Sasha. I knew she'd be there, but since the kids weren't with us, son had a sleepover, daughter stayed with my mom. I didn't really have anything against seeing her. They arrived some time after we did. My husband and I spoke with them for a few minutes, and it was less awkward than I expected. Sasha asked me about the baby's sex, and I told her we weren't telling anyone, which, again, is what we've always done. About 20 minutes later, my father told me they had to go. I thought it was weird that they were leaving so soon, but I didn't think much of it at the time. He called me a few days ago, and we spoke for a long time. My father is difficult to talk to, so the following is what I gathered from the conversation. He said they left early because Sasha was holding back tears after she saw me. She was sobbing by the time they got to the car. They later had a discussion about it, and Sasha admitted she wanted kids. She married my dad knowing he didn't, but hoped he would change his mind. Apparently, when my son was born, Sasha tried to drop one hints to my father. He didn't notice it, so she gave up. According to my father, Sasha told him she loved my kids equally, but my daughter was special because she always imagined herself as a girl mom. That's also the reason why she became such a suffocating presence when my daughter was a baby. When my husband and I started setting boundaries, Sasha realized she was overstepping and agreed to abide by them. To her credit, I think she did a mostly okay job back then, but the favoritism was still obvious enough that my son noticed it. The trip we took was a turning point because Sasha's dream of having a daughter included taking her to Disney World and having her do all the things she liked to do there when she was young. She told my father that having my daughter there was so exciting that she forgot everything I'd said about not overstepping. Sasha wanted a mother-daughter trip and tried to use my child for it. Sasha said she regretted her actions during the Disney trip, but only because she lost access to my children due to them. And seeing me at the party, all pregnant and pretty, my father's words, not sure she actually said that, was what drove her over the edge. I remember reading some comments theorizing that this was what was going on, but I still didn't really expect this. My father said he was telling me all this because his wife wasn't doing well, and he'd understand if I wanted to keep my kids away from her. I didn't expect that either. I don't know what the future of their relationship will be, and I don't think my father does either. All I know is that if Sasha still wants to have kids, it almost definitely will not be with my father. Before all this, I was pondering about my third child's future in relation to Sasha. Now, I sincerely don't want her to be a part of my baby's life. This isn't a final decision, but I've been speaking to my husband about it, and he agrees with me. I don't think she's a bad person. I got some baby stealer comments on my previous update, but I don't think that's what's happening here either. But if the Disney trip proved anything to me, it's that Sasha is willing to be extremely selfish and disrespectful to get what she wants, even when my kids are involved. A couple of months ago, my husband and I had a conversation with our son about the subject. He told us he dislikes Sasha for 2 reasons. She favors sister, and she doesn't listen to them. Honestly, that's all I need to know. Looking back at my own childhood, I feel like I was never allowed to have boundaries. I was always expected to put my schedules and preferences aside for others. It's important to me that my children don't go through that. If they don't want to see Sasha, they don't have to. I think that's all I want to say here. I'm doing well. I actually got some great news from work recently. My kids are thriving, and I'm excited to meet my 3rd baby. Again, thank you guys. Relevant comments where OP has replied. Comment 1, NTA. What a roller coaster. First time reading any of these. So wow. Great job shutting that down though and still being respectful. I admire the class you showed in handling it all, even with the slip calling her a creep, although it was accurate at the time. She was acting very creepy. OP. I still think I shouldn't have said it, but the more I think about it, the more I feel like I had to. Honestly, when my dad tried to tell me she'd been thinking about what my kids would like the whole time, all I could think about was every moment she tried to force them to do something they'd said they didn't want to do. The fact she lied to my daughter about the Ursula animatronic, which she knew was in the ride just days prior, didn't help. Comment 2. For what it's worth, you might want to give your dad a heads up shortly before you globally announce your daughter's birth. If Sasha is this infatuated with being a girl mom, and is this distraught over you being pregnant and pretty, he might want to be ready for how she'll react when she finds out you're a girl mom X2. OP. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried about her reaction. With our first 2, we didn't announce anything until we brought them home. My father said he's planning on visiting us at the hospital without Sasha, so he will find out before anyway, but I'll talk to him about it more in November. Comment 3. Has she ever thought about being a foster parent? I know it's not the same as having her own kids, but maybe your dad would consider it. OP. I don't know if she has thought about it, but I know my father wouldn't want that either. He's been saying he's done raising kids since I was a teenager. Now on to the next story. Story 6. I canceled the wedding because my fiancé and his friends assaulted his female best friend at his bachelor party. But then I found out he also cheated and it was all on video. I don't know what to do. My fiancé, M28, Alex, has a BFF, Danny, 28, since they were 4. She's a lovely, sweet person who has never crossed boundaries with Alex or their 2 other friends, Marcus and Daniel. The 4 are very close. Danny is gay and always was. She is very much a woman, but likes to dress in jeans and t-shirts and not in any feminine clothing. She is lean, tall, has short hair, and is just one of the boys in a lot of ways. This weekend was Alex's bachelor party. All 4 plus 2 other of Alex's friends went along. It was to a coastal town that's well known for hosting bachelor and bachelorette parties. But there's no strip club or anything. They stayed in a B&B and had scuba diving and kayaking planned. The first night went okay. Dinner, a restaurant, a nightclub and home. The last night was the issue. They did the nightclub and headed back to the house. Marcus and Daniel, who are both single, brought back 2 girls from the nightclub and got busy in their bedrooms. The rest were drinking in the living room, but things got a bit loud and the 2 friends started complaining that they didn't get to go to a strip club and never got to see tits and ass. They were blaming their wives and calling them names. Danny told them to shush as it was ruining the mood, and they both thought it would be funny if they saw Danny's body naked to make up for it. The thing is, Alex joined in and they stripped her. She was screaming loudly and Marcus and Daniel came running and rescued Danny and put her in a bedroom with the girls and had a fight with the 3 men. Daniel doesn't drink due to a chronic medical condition and the medication he is on, so they packed up and took Danny and the 2 girls and left the other 3. Danny was hysterical, and Marcus wanted her to go to the police, but she wouldn't. She was afraid to go home, so they ended up dropping the girls off and taking Danny to her parents, which was an hour away. Marcus was at my door at 7 a.m. this morning and he told me what happened. He said that if he ever sees Alex again, he's afraid of how things could go. He told me that if he can convince Danny to press charges, he will. Then he left. Alex returned about 3 o'clock this afternoon. He was acting normally until I told him Marcus had visited. He was very nervous and tried to play down what happened as a joke that got out of hand. I'm devastated. I heard him out, but he knew I wasn't accepting what he was saying. I told him Danny may be going to the police and he got very panicked and pale. He said she had him blocked and he wanted to go talk to her. I told him she wasn't at her place as she was too afraid he or his buddies would turn up there. I asked him to leave and he didn't want to go, but I insisted. He was crying, saying it was a prank that got out of hand. I heard him out only as a courtesy to our 2-year relationship. But I'm done. I don't know this man. I don't know if I should reach out to Danny or just do nothing. Marcus and I have been in constant contact and he agrees that I have no option but to end things. I don't know where to start with canceling everything as the wedding was in 5 weeks, but it seems trivial compared to what Danny is going through right now. Marcus is convinced that Danny is going to the police after talking to her parents, so I think Alex is in trouble. I can't support him on this. Maybe I'm wrong, as he was drunk and probably had taken other things, but this was his friend from age 4 and he did this to her. I've not blocked Alex, but I've not replied or picked up any of his calls. Update 1, September 9th, 2024. It's been a terrible day. I can't reach out to my friends yet as I'm ashamed. I did tell my parents and my brother and they have been wonderful. My brother brought his friend with him when he came to stay and today both of them packed up every bit of my ex's stuff and took it to his parents' house. My ex was there and just asked if that meant I was finished with him and my brother said yes and did he really expect any other reaction? His father intervened and told the ex not to say anything more. He told my brother to tell me to contact him on canceling the wedding. I'm not contacting his father ever. My parents are handling canceling the wedding and my father got in touch with my cousin, who is a lawyer, and he is going to help advise me as needed. I have to disentangle myself from the ex on leases, bank accounts, savings, and such, although my brother made me transfer all of my money from joint accounts, savings, and daily accounts to my own account. It's a mess. I tried to ring Danny, but she isn't up for speaking to anyone. So I just texted her that I was there for her and that I had broken up with Alex. She hasn't replied and I don't expect she will. She's in a bad way, apparently. Daniel spent 3 hours with me today. There's a lot going on, but I'm afraid to say too much for fear of damaging any court case. Just to say, there are 2 videos of the incident, one by Jeb, one of the 2 friends. A lot of it is chaotic, but the last part is clear and telling. Apparently the owners of the rental house have gotten involved and have footage, but I can't say more. When Marcus left me, he went to both those guys' wives and told them what happened. Jeb's wife has been very helpful, apparently, and she has split from him. The other guy's wife too has left him. Things are going how most of you want them to go. That's all I will say. Well, I will add it was worse than what Marcus shared. Daniel told me that before Danny found her style. She had long hair and dressed feminine and was stunningly beautiful, and all three of them were in love with her as teens. Alex took her rejection very personally apparently, and Daniel says he was angry and bitter for a couple of years but hid it from her. He thought he had gotten over it, but Daniel feels this smacked of revenge against her. Scary if this is true. I have and continued to receive hundreds of texts from Alex. He told me his father told him to stop texting me, but he can't. I haven't replied or blocked, based on advice. This is very hard and I don't know what way all this is going to end up. Sorry about any mistakes and typos, I'm not doing well. If there's more, I will post again if I'm able. Update 2, September 12, 2024. I got a call from Danny. Daniel has been ever present and I'm guessing it was because he knew she was going to call. There's a lot more to the story. The first night was normal, as I said, but on the Saturday Alex, Jeb and their friend decided not to go scuba diving with Danny, Daniel, and Marcus. Danny was feeling very hungover and gave up after an hour and went back to the Airbnb. She walked into the living room to find all three guys engaging in sexual acts with two women. Jeb shouted at her to get out as this was costing them a fortune. The women were escorts. She left and went back to the boat and only told Marcus what she saw when they all went back later. Alex told her to not tell me, as it was just his last bit of freedom. She told him she was disgusted with him and that he wasn't free. She told him she would have to think about what to do. Marcus convinced her to stay another night as he and Daniel had met the two girls the night before and were seeing them again that night, and if Danny wanted to leave then Daniel would have to take her as he was her ride and there wasn't public transport in the tiny town. So Alex cheated, as did the other two. Marcus told their wives that morning, but not me. He was going to do it in stages as he knew how I was in shock. The actual assault went further than Marcus told me also, and while Alex hadn't actually done anything beyond pulling off her clothes unlike the other two, he stood by and watched and did nothing to help her. She said she thought he had taken shrooms earlier but couldn't be sure. Marcus and Daniel did rescue her, but things had already escalated. She went to the police immediately she got to her parents. The Airbnb owners had also gone independently when they saw the footage. All three men are facing the consequences of their actions. Danny told me she was sorry she didn't leave and tell me immediately like she wanted to do. She is very distraught still. I didn't want to make things worse for her. I don't think I am needed for any legal proceedings, so I finally blocked Alex and his parents. The wedding is cancelled and I'm just starting to disentangle myself from Alex on bank accounts and such. Here's my issue. I'm feeling very angry towards Marcus. It feels like he didn't really care about me. He stopped Danny from telling me so he could continue to shack up with the girl he met. He apparently feels guilty because if they had left, Danny would not have been attacked. He didn't do me the courtesy of telling me that Alex cheated that morning like he did with the other two wives. It's not like he was sparing my feelings because my ex assaulting another woman was a pretty damn bad thing to hear. He didn't tell me the full extent of the attack. Danny is still unsure if Alex wasn't just waiting his turn or all he was going to do was watch. I should have been told that ASAP and not from Danny, because the conversation was incredibly difficult for her. Daniel didn't know about the escorts at all and didn't know Marcus hadn't shared the full story of what they saw when they burst in. Daniel has been my rock. I need some perspective here. Is it okay to be angry at Marcus? Is it misplaced anger? I'm pretty angry at Alex though, and that's all I feel towards him. Can anyone give me a different perspective in missing? Marcus and I had been in constant contact. He's already back at work, so it was messages/texts and occasional calls. He actually visited last night, but I didn't open the door to him. Daniel is saying whatever I feel right now is okay. But I think he's just placating me. I don't know who to trust anymore. I don't have to have any more contact with Alex and think the case will move along without me. I'm thinking of telling Daniel that I need a break from him and Marcus and that group of friends. Danny and I have said we will stay in touch, but I can't see us being very close. My best friend, who I finally confided in, thinks I should just step away from them all now for good and try to move forward. My parents agree and think it's necessary for healing. My brother thinks Daniel has been nothing but great and I shouldn't cut him off, but they all seem to be a package deal, but without Alex now obviously, so I think it's probably all or nothing. What should I do? I don't want to be ungrateful, but a clean break feels right. Update 3, September 23, 2024. I've been putting off writing this update, but I'm back because I need even more advice and an outside perspective. The comments have been pretty helpful so far. Thank you. It's long, but I'll do my best to shorten it. First of all, Danny and I have bonded. She and I talk every day and message constantly. I didn't expect that, but it's truly wonderful. She says she needs a good straight friend right now, JK, and honestly, she is a great person and has been a huge support to me despite what she has been going through. I told her I posted here as I felt guilty as to tell my story I had to tell hers. She was okay with it. She is thinking of waiving her right to anonymity when the trial comes, as she wants everyone to know she was raped and by who. Danny has quit her job, moved to her parents full-time, and is in therapy. She's just about okay. Surviving still rather than living, but she is so strong and amazing. Justice moves slowly here, so there isn't too much of an update on the legal process. Marcus was told, however, he would not face charges for assault for attacking the two actively attacking Danny. I went back to work and it was awful. I work for a tiny startup. Oscar, who works there, is friendly with Marcus and my brother. We are all into martial arts and attend the same dojo, so I'm getting a lot of pity. I'd have been okay with sympathy or empathy, but being pitted sucks. Still, it's better than being home all day doing nothing. Daniel gave me space as I asked, and he is truly a good guy. There is nothing romantic there at all though. I'm not in a fit state for anything like that and won't be for a very, very long time, and he is just a good guy, no ulterior motives. We text a bit and he is in a lot of contact with Danny. I got a letter in the mail from Alex. Said he held out hope while I hadn't blocked him. But once I did, he was distraught. He told me he doesn't want to freak me out by turning up in person, and I know that wouldn't look good for him anyway. But he just wanted to tell his side of the story. He said he was pressured into doing stuff with the escorts and he only got a BJ. The other two were really pressuring him to do more, but he didn't and says he regrets even doing that. He admits he was angry at Danny because she told him he either told me about the cheating or she would, but he knew he was totally in the wrong. He knew I would dump him for cheating, so he took everything he could get his hands on. He's not even sure what he took, and while he remembers pulling off Danny's shoes, he doesn't remember anything else. So he was just peer pressured and drunk and drugged up, and he did nothing wrong at all basically. I was just disgusted to read this. His total lack of accountability is just sickening. I'm not responding to him ever. Any future mail goes unopened into the trash. I'm in therapy, but it's early days and I'm not seeing progress yet. That leaves me with Marcus. He knows I've been angry with him and he is desperate to talk it out. I probably feel too much anger towards him but find it hard not to. He is still feeling very guilty over making Danny stay. I don't understand why I feel so angry towards him. It's not on the level of anger I feel towards Alex by any means, but I'm still hesitant to talk to him. I think he made mistakes, but in my heart I know he was dealing with a lot that morning. But I just wouldn't have been there when Alex got home if I had known the truth. I feel Marcus should have told me everything as I was the one who had to face Alex alone. I know I should hear him out, but I'm finding it very hard. How can I get past this? I want to clear the air with him even if we are never friends, and me cutting him out is really having a terrible effect on him. I know he rescued Danny and has been constantly checking up on her. I know he can be a good guy, but part of me feels he wasn't all good that weekend. I don't know. I haven't touched this in therapy as we are just starting and are talking about Alex. I need advice on how to deal with this. I wanted to give it some time, but Marcus' mental health is pretty poor, and maybe by not meeting him I'm just making him worse. How can I find it in me to just bite the bullet and hear him out? Why am I so angry with him? How can I move past this? I don't want to be angry at him. I'm so exhausted from being angry at him and at Alex, and I want it to stop at least towards Marcus. But it won't help. I'm visiting Danny for the weekend that should have been my wedding. We are going to have a Lord of the Rings marathon and her mother is making a cheesecake. My own family have been wonderful in every way, but Danny is truly why I'm still standing. Edit. Forgot to say it wasn't an Airbnb. It was just a privately rented house. I just assumed incorrectly it was. Now on to the next story. Story 7. Daughter chose her bio mom over us and threatened my wife, so I cut off her college fund and kicked her out. Now, months later, she is blaming me for ruining her life. I am here on Reddit today because of a very unexpected situation I am facing. Years ago, my high school girlfriend Gigi at the time, and I got pregnant unexpectedly. We had always been careful, but I guess sometimes life has its own plans. When Gigi discovered she was pregnant, she went ballistic, as she had always dreamed of pursuing her career as a model and argued that getting pregnant meant giving up on all those dreams. Throughout college, she had been working various part-time gigs and going for auditions, so I knew how much her career meant for her. I empathized deeply with her aspirations and assured her that I would support whatever choice she made. It was important to me that she knew I was there for her no matter what. Unfortunately, we found out that her pregnancy was too far along to consider termination. This news was devastating for Gigi, as it felt like all her dreams were slipping away, and it put her in a very difficult position. In the midst of this, our families reacted very differently to the news. My parents immediately stepped forward, offering to take responsibility and support us in any way they could. They were ready to help us through this new phase in life and ensure the best for the baby. However, Gigi and her mother had a completely different perspective. They were vehement about giving the baby up for adoption after birth. Gigi's mom believed that this was the best way to ensure that Gigi could continue pursuing her dreams guilt-free, without the burden of motherhood hanging over her head. My parents and I were firmly against this idea. I assured Gigi and her mother repeatedly that I would take full responsibility for the child, promising that Gigi wouldn't have to do anything for our baby if she chose not to. I tried to convince them that we could find a way to make it work without giving up the baby. Despite my assurances, they kept insisting that giving up the baby and cutting all contact was the right choice. Gigi was particularly adamant about this because she feared that if she gave the baby to me, there might be a chance I would try to involve her in the baby's life later on. She wanted to avoid the potential drama entirely, ensuring a clean break so she could move forward without any ties or guilt. I spent days begging and reassuring Gigi that after she gave up her parental rights, I would never contact her again about the baby. I promised her that she could go on to live her life without ever having to think about the child, completely guilt-free. Eventually, both she and her mom were convinced, and that is exactly what happened. After Gigi gave birth to our baby girl, Diana, she recovered and resumed her life. My parents and I took on the full responsibility of caring for Diana. Initially, balancing my studies with caring for a newborn was challenging, but I've never regretted my decision. Seeing my daughter grow and thrive brought me immense joy and a sense of purpose. Throughout the rest of my college years, Gigi avoided me completely. She never once inquired about our daughter, and I stayed true to my promise, never bothering her about it. My focus was entirely on raising Diana and building a stable life for us. Diana meant everything to me, and it's hard to put into words just how deep my love was for her. They say there's a special bond between fathers and their daughters, and from the moment I first saw her in the hospital, I knew that was true. It was an overwhelming feeling when I held her in my arms, like my entire universe suddenly centered around her. She brought an indescribable purpose into my life. I can't even count the number of times my classmates would tease me about becoming a dad too soon. They would say I was missing out on life and that I should be out having fun, not changing diapers and worrying about a baby. Despite their comments, I never paid any heed to them because they didn't understand the bond one had with Diana or how fulfilling it was to watch her grow and learn. Sure, my college experience was vastly different from theirs, but looking back, I wouldn't have traded it for anything. Every milestone Diana reached, every smile, and every little moment we shared made all my sacrifices worth it. I worked tirelessly to graduate from college with good grades while juggling a part-time job to support my daughter. Being a single parent is incredibly challenging, so I'm immensely thankful to my parents for those days when they stepped in and did their best to watch over my daughter whenever they could. From babysitting Diana when I had late-night study sessions before my exams to offering advice and a listening ear when it got too frustrating for me, their unwavering love and support helped me navigate the toughest times. My parents' selflessness and dedication allowed me to focus on my studies and provided for my child without feeling too overwhelmed. When I finally graduated college, secured a stable job, and saved up enough money, I was overjoyed to move out with Diana into our very own place. It was a milestone moment for us both. I took great care in choosing each piece of furniture, decorating Diana's room, and making sure everything was perfect for us. This wasn't just about having a roof over our heads. It was about creating a space where we could make new memories and feel truly settled. In the first few years after moving out, it was just Diana and me. I would go to work at my office, pick her up from daycare, and we would then head home together. After freshening up, I would help her with homework while preparing dinner and prepping her lunch for the next day. Gradually, I got the hang of managing everything on my own. Sure, there were times when exhaustion hit and I had to call my parents for help, but for the most part, I was always there for my daughter and she could count on me for anything. Being her parent was my first priority, and seeing her grow and thrive as a happy child was incredibly rewarding. When Diana was 5 years old, I met her stepmother and the love of my life, Chloe. Chloe was a divorcee who had come out of an abusive marriage. Despite her difficult past, she was an incredibly kind and compassionate woman. The way she interacted with Diana was what truly made me fall in love with her. Chloe understood how important Diana was to me, and she embraced her wholeheartedly. Seeing the bond they formed and how naturally Chloe took on the role of a loving figure in Diana's life made me realize that she was the one I wanted to share my life with. When Chloe and I got married, Diana was our flower girl. I still have those adorable pictures from our wedding showing how she never left our side throughout the entire ceremony. She looked so sweet and happy, and it warmed my heart to see her being part of such a special day. The wedding was a joyous occasion for everyone, and our little family was surrounded by love and support. My parents, in particular, were overjoyed. They cried tears of happiness because they knew how much I had struggled over the years. Seeing me finally find love and build a happy family meant the world to them. It was a beautiful day filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a bright future together. Over the years, Chloe consistently proved to be a loving stepmother to Diana, caring for her as if she were her own daughter. After moving into a larger home that Chloe and I purchased together, I tragically lost my parents to health issues. This period was devastating for me and perhaps why I couldn't give Diana the attention I used to. It was during this time that Diana started facing bullying in high school. Some of her friends found out from their gossiping mothers that Chloe wasn't actually Diana's biological mother. It didn't help that Chloe has blonde hair and a sharper nose, while Diana has brown curls and different facial features, making it clear they didn't look alike. When Diana's friends started to tease her about it at school, she became sad and withdrawn. They would say cruel things like her biological mom probably abandoned her because she never loved her and that Chloe would eventually abandon her too. At the time, I had no idea what Diana was going through. She kept her pain to herself, and it wasn't until things had escalated that I realized how much she was hurting. One day, we received a call from the principal's office because Diana had allegedly attacked another student and broken her nose. When I heard this news, I was shocked to my core because my daughter had always been gentle and kind-hearted. Chloe and I rushed to the school, anxious to find out what had happened. In the principal's office, we learned that Diana had been relentlessly teased by this other girl for a long time. Finally pushed to her limit, Diana had taken matters into her own hands and thrown a stone at her tormentor in a fit of anger and frustration. Hearing about the bullying Diana had endured filled me with a mixture of anger and sadness. I wanted to confront the other child and her parents right then and there, ready to defend my daughter fiercely, but Chloe, always level-headed, managed to calm me down. The other girl's parents insisted that Diana apologize, but I was livid. I threatened to take legal action against them and the school for allowing my daughter to be mentally harassed for so long. I argued passionately, pointing out the severity of bullying and how it had pushed Diana to her breaking point. I made it clear that bullying a minor was unacceptable and that they had no right to let their daughter's behavior escalate to this extent. My strong reaction seemed to intimidate them, and they backed down, deciding not to pursue the matter further. I never scolded Diana for what she did because deep down, I understood the pain and torment she had endured for months before finally standing up for herself. It was a heartbreaking situation, but I was proud of Diana for finding the courage to defend herself, even though it came at such a drastic cost. After that incident, I knew it was time to have a candid conversation with Diana about her biological mother, Gigi. Until then, Diana had some vague awareness about why Gigi was not part of our lives, but I had never fully disclosed the details to her. I sat down with Diana and explained openly about how Gigi and I had become parents at a very young age and why Gigi made the decision she did to leave us. I reassured Diana that Gigi's choice had nothing to do with her. I explained that sometimes adults are not equipped to take care of children, and that was the case with Gigi. I also made sure to highlight how fortunate Diana was to have Chloe in her life. I told her that Chloe loved her deeply and cared for her as her own child, willing to do anything for her well-being. I wanted Diana to understand that family isn't just about biology but about love, care, and the people who are there for us unconditionally. After our conversation, I hoped Diana would have moved past her curiosity about her bio mom. But a few weeks later, she confided in me that she was trying to reach out to Gigi. I was deeply concerned for her because I knew how firmly Gigi had asked to never be contacted again. Despite my warnings, Diana was determined, and it worried me greatly that she might face disappointment or rejection. When Diana finally got in touch with Gigi, she excitedly told me that her biological mom was happy to hear from her and wanted to meet up. I couldn't help but feel skeptical about this sudden change, considering Gigi had never attempted to contact me about Diana over the years, even though my contact information remained unchanged. I voiced my doubts to Diana, expressing how difficult it was for me to believe Gigi's newfound enthusiasm. Despite my reservations, Diana was thrilled and believed Gigi's words wholeheartedly. She quickly made plans to meet her bio mom at a mall and insisted on going alone. I firmly insisted that I accompany her at least to drop her off and verify if it really was Gigi. Reluctantly, Diana agreed to my condition. On the day of the meeting, I drove Diana to the mall where she was supposed to meet Gigi. When we arrived, I scanned the crowd anxiously, searching for any sign of Gigi, half expecting her to not even show up. Suddenly, Diana spotted her. She pointed excitedly, and my eyes followed her gaze. There, standing not too far away, was Gigi. She seemed genuinely happy to see Diana, and they embraced warmly. It was a surreal moment seeing Diana reunited with her bio mom. I stood back, giving them their space but keeping a watchful eye. Seeing Diana smile and the way she interacted with Gigi eased some of my initial doubts. It was clear that this meeting meant a lot to Diana, and despite my concerns, I couldn't deny her the chance to connect with her biological mother. Gigi greeted me politely and assured me that she would bring Diana home after their conversation was done. She expressed gratitude for the opportunity to meet her daughter and appeared genuinely sincere. Feeling a mix of emotions, I decided to leave them to talk and give Diana this important moment. Several hours later, as promised, Gigi returned Diana home. My daughter looked flushed with excitement, clearly having enjoyed her time with her biological mother. When I asked Diana about their conversation, she eagerly recounted how wrong I had been about Gigi for all these years. According to Diana, her bio mom had expressed regret over her decision to not be a part of our daughter's life and seemed genuinely remorseful for her actions. Diana went on to tell me that Gigi wanted to be a part of her life now, and this is what she wanted as well. Hearing Diana's words stirred conflicting emotions within me. Part of me was relieved that Diana had a positive experience with her bio mom and that Gigi seemed sincere in her regret. Yet another part of me felt cautious, still processing the sudden shift in Gigi's stance after all these years. I couldn't help but wonder about the implications of this newfound connection for our family and how it might impact Diana moving forward. Chloe reassured me that I couldn't control the situation and that all we could do was hope Gigi wouldn't emotionally harm or affect Diana in the future. Over the following weeks, Diana began regularly meeting her biological mother every other weekend for a few hours. Initially, I was supportive as much as I could be, wanting Diana to explore this newfound relationship. However, I started noticing a pattern. Each time Diana went to meet Gigi, she would ask me for money beforehand. Initially, I assumed it was for personal expenses, but it became clear that Gigi expected Diana to pay for their meals whenever they met. I was puzzled and concerned, so I asked Diana why Gigi didn't offer to cover these costs. Diana explained that Gigi was facing financial difficulties at the time but assured me that her bio mom was actively searching for a job and would soon be in a better position. As odd as this arrangement seemed to me, I chose to let it go for the sake of Diana's happiness. I wanted to support her in maintaining this relationship with her biological mother without adding unnecessary stress or tension. My priority was ensuring that Diana felt supported and loved, even if it meant accepting certain compromises along the way. However, I began to notice items disappearing from the house. It started with seemingly minor things, such as Chloe's cherished ancestral cups and saucers, which were wedding gifts from her grandmother. Initially, we dismissed it, thinking they might have been misplaced. However, when my wife discovered that some of her expensive clothes and lingerie were also disappearing from her closet, our concern grew considerably. The situation baffled us because we couldn't understand where these missing items were ending up. Naturally, we turned to Diana for answers, hoping she might have some explanation. Each time we asked her, she adamantly swore that she had no idea about the missing items or their whereabouts. She blamed Chloe for being careless and told me that she was probably overreacting. I decided to install cameras in our common areas at my wife's insistence, hoping to catch any potential intruders who might be stealing from us. One day, Chloe couldn't find her wedding ring anywhere. Normally, she would leave it on our bedside stand before heading to the gym for her workout. I followed the same routine with my ring because they were both valuable and we wanted to keep them safe from any potential damage in the gym. When Chloe returned home, she couldn't locate her ring despite searching everywhere. She was visibly upset and anxious. By the time I got home, we decided to review the footage from our security cameras together to see if they could provide any clues. As we watched the recorded footage, what we saw shocked us and left us questioning everything we thought we knew. It turned out that whenever we were not at home, Diana would roam around the house and take things that didn't belong to her. As we watched the footage from our security cameras, we witnessed Diana entering our bedroom and emerging with something in her hand, a clear image of my wife's wedding ring. When I confronted Diana about the theft, she initially denied any involvement. However, I calmly showed her the incriminating footage. Her expression turned pale as she realized she had been caught red-handed. Sensing her distress, I asked her gently to explain herself. I wanted to understand why she had resorted to stealing from us. Chloe asked her if she had stolen her clothes and lingerie as well, and this is when Diana burst out crying. She finally confessed that she had been stealing from Chloe for months as a form of revenge. She told us that she had grown to resent the fact that Chloe and I were married. Diana expressed that she wanted me to leave Chloe and to consider reconciling with her biological mother, Gigi, because according to my daughter, Gigi still harbored feelings for me and regretted our breakup. I was pissed. Hearing my daughter's words, I tried to remain calm but firm as I explained to her that she was being very delusional. I assured her that my love and commitment to Chloe were firm and that her relationship with her bio-mom was separate from my marriage. I emphasized that I couldn't undo the past and that her expectations for me to leave Chloe were unrealistic and unfair to me. However, Diana's emotions boiled over when I did not agree to her. She erupted in anger, shouting accusations that I was the one who had abandoned Gigi all those years ago and asserted that Chloe could never replace her biological mother. She argued that for her sake, I should at least try to be in a relationship with her bio-mom since she has always dreamed of having a family where her bio-parents were married to each other. Her outburst shook me deeply. I expressed my frustration, telling her how exhausting it was to hear these childish demands after everything I had sacrificed for her over the years. I reminded Diana of all the love and care Chloe had shown her over the years. I pointed out the sacrifices Chloe had made, the support she had given, and how she had embraced Diana as her own daughter. I told her that she was being ungrateful and unfair by expecting me to leave my wife for Gigi. This is when the situation with my daughter took a disturbing turn. When instead of understanding my firm stance, she made a shocking threat. Diana threatened me that she would falsely accuse Chloe of sexual assault and grooming if I didn't leave her immediately. I was stunned and deeply troubled by her words, unsure of where such ideas could have come from. Diana went on to tell me that she had watched enough documentaries to know that this could potentially put Chloe in jail for life and I would lose my wife forever. I asked her if she had lost her mind since this was a pretty serious allegation, and Diana revealed that she was willing to make Chloe's life as miserable as possible, but assured me that it could all stop if I simply started dating her bio-mom. I stared at my daughter, and for the first time, I felt disgust and fear towards her. She was behaving like a deranged person. Clearly, she had taken her own delusions seriously and had potentially also been influenced and manipulated by her biological mother. I couldn't believe how low my daughter was willing to go to make her twisted dreams of getting me and her bio mom together come true. When my wife, Chloe, learned about Diana's willingness to make false accusations, she immediately informed me that she could no longer live under the same roof as my daughter. She was concerned that Diana might not be in the right state of mind and that her false threats could permanently damage our life for no valid reason. I understood her reaction and felt compelled to teach Diana a profound lesson about accountability and responsibility, since she would never learn if I went soft on her after the way she had just threatened us. This is why I informed Diana that since she trusted her bio mom so much and she was anyways going to be 18 soon, I wanted her to move out immediately and live with Gigi. I assured her that I would continue to support her financially until she turned 18, but I could no longer allow her to live with us. I told her that she needed to fund her own college education or seek assistance from her beloved bio mom. Diana had no idea until then that Chloe had set up a trust fund for her, so she would have never needed to take out a loan for her education. However, given the circumstances, I didn't want my ungrateful daughter to get a penny out of it, so we had decided to not give her any access to it whatsoever. Diana did try to protest and fight back against my decision. She even resorted to making more vile threats about ruining my life and career, but I didn't listen to her. I called Gigi and asked her to come pick up our daughter. That shameless woman had no remorse on her face when I confronted her about why she had put these disgusting ideas into our daughter's head, since this is not how my daughter ever behaved before. Gigi simply shrugged her shoulders, telling me that it was Diana's dream to see us both together, and that it was never too late for us to give it a try. I cringed hearing her words and simply refused to interact with her any further after that. I handed Diana some money and watched my daughter drive away with her bio mom after packing up her things. Diana never contacted me after that day, even though I continued to send her money every week. When my daughter graduated from high school, I learned that she had been accepted into a reputable university with a partial scholarship. She needed help covering the remaining fund, and it wasn't long before Gigi contacted me. She told me that I needed to step up and pay the money required, since she didn't want Diana to take out a student loan. I told her there were thousands of students every year who took out student loans for completing their education, and Diana should do the same so she could learn the meaning of hard work. Also, I told her since she was the one who had put all those poisonous ideas into our daughter's head, she should be the one stepping up, since I had done more than enough for Diana. I knew Gigi and Diana couldn't even threaten legal action on me, since Diana was now an adult and any legal obligation would not hold against me anymore. After this conversation, I blocked Gigi for my own peace of mind. Several months passed without any contact from either her or my daughter. However, everything changed yesterday when Diana called me in tears. She sounded deeply distressed and pleaded with me to listen to her. I was in the middle of a very important meeting, but I still left it so I could be there for my daughter. Diana explained to me on the phone how Gigi had not supported her in securing a place at her dream university, causing her to lose her seat as a result. Diana had no choice but to find work at a fast food restaurant for the time being. Apparently, Gigi did not want her to live at her place for free. Hence, Diana had been paying Gigi rent every month. Diana tearfully asked if she could move back home and apologized to both me and Chloe in person for what she had done. She admitted that I had been right about Gigi all along, but also blamed me for not teaching her any better. Honestly, it is hard to trust my daughter again after what she was willing to accuse my wife of. The thought of her making such false allegations again on Chloe looms large in my mind even today. Despite this, she is still my daughter and I love her deeply, so I offered her what I believed was a fair compromise. I told her that I would pay her rent each month so she could find a new place to live. This would allow her to save her earnings instead of paying rent to her mother. I even told her that I would help her out with college eventually. However, upon hearing this, my daughter reacted with anger, hurling insults at Chloe and me. She accused me of being useless, claimed that I never loved her, and even wished that I was dead. Her words made me realize how little she had truly learned over the past months. Despite her outburst, I held firm in my decision and refused to give in to her demands. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for not letting my daughter move back in and forgiving her entirely for her past actions? Update 1. Clearing up a few things here. Looking back, Diana's behavior was changing a lot towards Chloe. Every time she came back home after visiting her bio mom, she would sometimes call Chloe degrading words like old hag or witch whenever they had any disagreement. Chloe and I foolishly assumed that Diana was just going through a phase and would eventually grow out of it. Threatening to falsely accuse someone of sexual assault and grooming is a serious thing. Even if Chloe is a woman, it doesn't mean that she could not have gotten in trouble with the authorities had Diana made the complaint against her. How can I ask my wife to stay with my daughter under one roof after that? Also, Diana continues to clearly hate her, so I think it's too risky to let my daughter stay with us ever again. I did not refuse to pay my daughter's college fees out of spite. I felt it was also an important lesson for her to see just how little her mother was willing to sacrifice for her. Also, if tomorrow your child can threaten you with such vile things and you choose to turn a blind eye to them, you are just teaching them that they can get away with anything. God knows what they can do in the future if they are not taught a lesson. Also, all Gigi needed to do was help Diana take out a student loan and be her cosigner, but she clearly chose not to do that. Update 2. I have talked to Diana, and she has finally agreed to let me pay for her rent. She is looking at new places currently. I took some of your advice, and I will be sending the rent check directly to the landlord of the house so Gigi won't be able to steal the money from Diana. Also, I plan on having a conversation with Diana regarding her going back to college. Of course, this time Chloe won't help out with anything because it's not her responsibility. Update 3. So Diana is all settled into her new home now. She and I recently met up for lunch, and we discussed her future plans. She apologized to me profusely for everything that happened between us and understood why Chloe no longer wants to have a relationship with her. I've assured Diana that I'll support her in starting college next year if she wants to. So she has agreed on working hard this year and saving as much money as possible. Gigi is furious that she has lost Diana's paychecks, but there is not much she can do at the moment since I have her blocked and Diana is no longer speaking to her as well. Now on to the next story. Story 8. I found out my husband is cheating on me and told his coworker that I'm his single sister. So I left him. My husband, I'll call him Josh, and I have been together for 6 years, married for 4, and we don't have kids. We have a really healthy and communicative relationship. We're both pretty easygoing, and I really love him. He started working at a large accounting firm about 3 years ago, and from what he tells me, he loves it there. He's made a lot of friends through his job, and he goes out with them for drinks and social events quite often, and I've been totally okay with that. I'm quite introverted, so I've never been interested in meeting his colleagues or work friends, nor have I asked to. I've got my own circle of friends, and I'm fine with us having separate friend groups. After what happened yesterday, it only just occurred to me that he has never actually asked me if I'd like to meet any of them or go to one of his work events. I guess that's important context. Anyway, I'll start with what happened a few months ago that I had brushed off until now. I was at a bar with some friends for a couple of Friday after-work drinks, and a guy approached me. He was there with some friends too. He looked slightly familiar, but I hadn't met him before. He seemed friendly enough and he asked me my name. I think I must have just given him a confused look because he followed up with, "I'm Jake. I work with Josh." I realized that I recognized him from some photos on my husband's phone. I don't use social media except for a private Instagram, so I'm not sure if he posted the photos anywhere, but we've got a very trusting relationship, so I look in his photos sometimes. Don't hate me. This is where it gets a bit embarrassing. I'm a bit socially awkward, and so I struggle to end the conversation, but he just kept talking at me. I guess he was already a couple of beers deep, but while he was talking, he said something like, "It's great that you guys are still so close. I haven't talked to my brother in ages." At the time I was like, huh, but I just assumed he was drunk and not making sense, so I ignored it. He started to get a little flirty, so I turned to my friends, and we left shortly after that. I didn't say anything to them about it, and it didn't seem like a big deal to me. I also decided not to tell my husband that I had met his coworker, Jake, not to hide it, but because I figured the guy wouldn't even remember talking to me, and I didn't want to make it awkward for Josh at work by telling him his colleague tried to hit on me. I just thought, no harm, no foul. But yesterday morning, I was out walking our dog, Monty. He's a cross between a few breeds and has very unique markings. This matters, I promise. I was on my way to my regular cafe, which is in town. I was waiting in line to order, and the guy in front was an older man. He got his coffee and turned around but stopped and looked at my dog and goes, "Hello, Monty." Monty was super excited to see him apparently, and so I guess that the guy was another colleague of Josh's because Josh brings the dog to the office a couple of times a week. I thought it was sweet, to be honest, so I smiled at him and said hi. He introduced himself, and I guessed correctly that he was a colleague, but then he said something like, "Aren't you a good sister?" walking his dog for him? I was so confused that I didn't even know how to react at first. So I stumbled on my words and just said, "It's my dog. I regret it, but I genuinely couldn't bring myself to correct him and say that I'm Josh's wife and not his sister. It was just too awkward, and I just wanted to leave because I think it was suddenly dawning on me what might have been going on." He asked me something about sharing a dog, but I was able to escape the conversation by being next in line to order my coffee, and he left. I seriously don't know what to do because what the hell do I even ask my husband about this? Part of me is just assuming or hoping that it's a mistake, that he doesn't talk about me much at work, and they assume we are related because we both have brown hair. But the thought that he has been telling his coworkers that I'm his sister, and evidently they have seen what I look like, so they must have seen photos, makes my stomach churn. I don't even know how I would broach the subject with him. I need some help. What would you guys do in this situation? I have only told one friend what happened because it's so weird and embarrassing, and she has jumped straight to, time to plot his downfall. Because she's my ride or die? Love her. But I don't want to immediately assume the worst or ruin my marriage over something that could be nothing. I'm sorry for the long and ramble I post, but I would really appreciate any and all advice. Edit. Holy shit. Thank you everyone who commented with some advice. I haven't read all of them, but I really appreciate the suggestions from you guys. A small update. Josh came home at about 2:30 a.m. last night, but he was drunk, so he just went straight to sleep, which is fine by me because EFF having this conversation in that state. I've just woken up, but he's still sleeping. First thing I just want to clear up. I've seen a lot of people suggesting I have crippling social anxiety or am severely introverted, which I suppose you could glean from the way I explained what happened, but I'm not. I meant that I'm slightly introverted and that I'm not the most eager to meet lots of new people at once, especially a bunch of finance bros, whose weekends consist of unending sports bar beers where I assume I would be mansplained everything until my ears bleed. Probably a negative assumption, but I'm sure some of you know what I mean. I suppose you could say that I'm confrontation averse and that I'm quite laid back and prefer to keep a conversation easy and positive. I don't like it when things are awkward, and correcting when people misrecognize me is one of those things, but I'm not terrified of confrontation. Also, my husband and I do share some mutual friends. I didn't explain it well, but our lives are not entirely separate. The way he acts towards me around our mutual friends is extremely affectionate and normal. It is only his work friends that I have never interacted with. I'm going to talk to him today and ask him directly why he's telling his coworkers that I'm his sister. I followed the advice of writing my points down so that they don't get lost if I get emotional, lol. I will do my best not to let him slither out of it, and I hope he has some proof that his colleagues know I'm his wife. I know that's not the theatrical confrontation you guys were hoping for, but it's a Saturday, and I can't wait. Wish me luck. Thank you all. Additional information from OP. I didn't go into much detail about our relationship because it didn't seem relevant, but I meant it when I say we've had the healthiest and best relationship I've ever been in. I was friends with him for a year and a bit before we started dating. We met at uni. I've had shitty relationships before, and he truly blew me away when we started dating. He is genuinely the most empathetic, kind, intelligent man I have ever met. He remembers every little thing about me. He's so lovely to me every day, and does little acts of service just to make my day better, and I would do anything for him. We are both really supportive of each other. We also have a great sex life and we are intimate frequently, so I know he's not starved of it or anything. But that's why it's so hard for me to assume the worst because literally just earlier tonight, before he went out, he made me dinner and told me he loved me, like he always does. Like it just doesn't seem possible or real for him to be living some double life, you know? I can't even imagine it. As I'm typing, It feels like I'm in a dream or talking about someone else. Relevant comments that OP answered. Comment 1. Does he not wear a wedding ring to work? Why does he need to hide the fact he's married? Sorry OP, but this would send me into a tailspin. Find out as much as you can before confronting him. OP. This is where I am right now, tailspinning. Reading these comments and starting to think I'm stupid because it seems so obvious from an outside perspective. But I know him so well, I'm just finding it so hard to fathom he would even do something like this. Comment 2. I think you were underreacting here. There is literally no good reason he has told all his coworkers you are his sister. I am so sorry. You could choose to ask him why or you could just leave. OP. You're right. I think I was still in denial and hoping it was all a mix-up when I posted this. I still am a little. My husband is out right now and I'm in bed and my head is spinning, but I think I'll talk to him tomorrow. Comment 3. OP could surprise her husband at his job to give a kiss in front of his colleagues. OP. I really wish I was the kind of person that could do this, but the thought of having everyone looking and judging and laughing is just too much for me to handle. I don't even know them, and the thought is making me dissociate. But I think meeting him at work could be a good idea just to see how he reacts. I just don't know if I can wait the whole weekend without talking to him about this. Comment 4. So, he's either having an affair at work or keeping his options open. Neither is good. OP. I'm starting to think you're right, but I still can't even wrap my head around that being possible. He's been just as present and loving as he always has. Nothing has changed. Update 1, August 18th, 2024. Hi everyone. I just wanted to say thank you for the overwhelming amount of support and advice. I'm blown away, and it really means a lot and has kept me grounded. I'm sorry for the slow update. I know a lot of you were interested in what happened. I actually tried to update on Saturday, but it turns out this platform doesn't allow me to post an update until 48 hours after my first post. I'm also only allowed to post one single update, so I'll try to fit as much as I can here. Sorry for how long it might end up getting. I'll just get right into it. On Saturday morning, I woke up earlier than my husband. He was very hungover, so he was like sleeping a rock. But you guys will be proud of me because I followed some advice and decided to look through his phone properly while he was sleeping. I've been on his phone so often just pissing around on it that I had never thought to check anything very deeply. I know his passcode by heart. I checked all the expected things like Instagram DMs, Facebook Messenger, his iMessages, etc., and I didn't find anything that set off alarm bells to me. But I know from some comments that people who are cheating are good at covering their tracks and hiding messages, so I kept looking around. I saw he had a folder called Work, and so I looked in there, and he had a couple of Microsoft apps, Outlook, Authenticator, OneNote, etc. But he also had MS Teams, so I opened it up and had a look around. It did feel like I might have been breaking laws looking at his work messages, but I obviously had to anyway. I was already upset to see that he had a bunch of one-on-one chats with several female coworkers, which at first glance is obviously not an issue because everyone works with people of the opposite gender and are required to communicate with them. But a couple of them were vaguely flirty, nothing I would call egregious, but there would be the occasional message between them with some playful innuendo or a wink emoji. These upset me, obviously, and they did send me into a bit of a spiral, but I didn't find anything that suggested he was having an out-and-out affair with any of them. Still, I followed someone's suggestion of screenshotting the messages, and I airdropped them to myself. I still wanted some evidence of the lie though, some proof of Josh telling someone that I was his sister directly. A commenter suggested that I go through his messages and search for the keyword, sister. I wanted to reply to your comment and say thank you for the idea, but the post was locked, so I couldn't, but thank you. So I searched for sis on his MS Teams, hoping to find results for both sister and sis. A bunch of messages from all-hands group chats or one-on-one chats came up from other people, all unrelated and about their own sisters or whatever. But my heart dropped out of my ass, lol, when I saw there was a direct message from Jake, the guy from the bar, to Josh from a Monday a few months ago. Jake's message said, "Ran into your sis at the bar on Friday. She's single, right?" And my husband had the EFF gall to reply, "Nah, she's married." I literally almost burst into flames on the spot when I saw that. I can't even describe how much I was shaking after reading those messages. Firstly, that I could have confronted Josh about this months ago. I was and still am so furious with myself for that. Josh would have been praying I didn't remember meeting Jake or that I wouldn't mention it, and he would have been counting his lucky stars that I never did. He probably thought he was hot shit for getting away with that, and I nearly burn a hole through the floor thinking about it, lol. But secondly, I was just in shock that he had the balls to tell this guy that I'm the one who is married because he doesn't want anyone having it on with me, but he is allowed to coyly flirt with every woman in the office. Anyway, I kept going back through the search results on his MS Teams, and eventually I got as far back as 2-ish years ago, and I did in fact find a message from Josh himself to a group chat. It said, "Me and sis in Najua." I clicked on that and saw that he had sent it alongside a bunch of photos of him and I from our holiday to Bali. We went to Bali for our 2nd anniversary. I thought he probably chose those photos because he's shirtless and had been working out, so he looked hot in all of them. I was in tears seeing all of this, obviously. I took screenshots of those too and airdropped all of the screenshots to myself. Needless to say, I was devastated and still am to see all of that. I am still struggling to even process it at all, but that all happened on Saturday morning, and I immediately took myself to my friend's house. I'll call her Sophie. I went to her place to cry it out and show her what I found, and she was extremely supportive and probably more furious than me. Lol. At around 1:30 p.m., I got a phone call from Josh, and I hung it up immediately. He sent me a few messages along the lines of, "Where are you, baby? I'm ordering food. Want some? Sad to not wake up next to you this morning." Guys, I have to reiterate how much I love this man and how heart-wrenching it was to see him still acting like nothing had gone wrong. It took so much willpower to not just pretend none of it had ever happened and go home to him. I know a lot of you will yell at me or accuse me of being terrified of confronting him about this, which is not true. Please have some empathy. It takes me time to process my emotions, and I wouldn't have even been able to form a sentence if I tried to confront him immediately after seeing those messages. I needed some time away with Sophie to recollect myself, and so I stayed the night at her place. She ordered us Chinese, and she helped me plan how I would confront him. I got a bunch more texts and calls from him as the evening progressed, and I eventually put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Sunday morning, I woke up feeling more angry than sad, so I opened my phone and finally replied to his messages. "Coming home now. Need to talk." I kept it cryptic to make him squirm, to be honest, because I was / fraught with emotions. I can't remember the entire conversation word for word, but I'll try to replay it as best I can. Long story short, I got home, and he tried to hug me, but I refused him, and we just stood in the kitchen. I did confront him like someone suggested. I just said, "Why have you been telling your coworkers I'm your sister?" I wish it would have been like a movie scene where the color drained from his face or he immediately looked like a deer in headlights. But he didn't. It was like he had been steeling himself for this confrontation for a while because he just frowned at me and looked flabbergasted. He just said, "Huh, this made me so angry. How are you going to pretend to be stupid after 3 years of lying?" I basically said, "Don't play dumb. 2 of your coworkers have greeted me as your sister, and I have proof of you telling them, and I know you're pretending to be single, essentially." I asked him what he had to say for himself. He still played stupid. He became moderately defensive and just kept saying, "I don't know what you're talking about," or, "Why would I lie about you?" I cannot describe how furious I was at this point, but I was in tears. I always cry when I'm angry, so he was trying to comfort me as if I was having some kind of irrational breakdown. I showed him the screenshot of his message saying, "Me and sis," and I said something like, "You tell me." He just said, "I don't know what I'm looking at, and I'm confused." I got so angry that I left again and went back to Sophie's because it felt like a dead-end road. I didn't think I was going to get him to admit to anything, and I was just getting so furious I couldn't continue. He was really upset and in tears, which to me was evidence that he knew he was lying and that he was going to have to come up with some explanation. He tried to get me to stay, but I told him that, until you have something to say for yourself, we've got nothing to talk about. At like 8:30-ish, he called me again, and I did pick up. He basically asked for us to talk, and he said he has some things to say, so I went back to our apartment. He had written out a bunch of stuff on a piece of paper as if he had prepared a speech and sat me down on the couch. He asked me not to say anything while he was explaining himself. I'll write down the gist of what he said in bullet points. He started by apologizing relentlessly and admitting that he pretended to be stupid before because he couldn't immediately think of something to say for himself. He said that immediately after he started at his job, he realized the atmosphere was like a frat house. All of his team members were men in their 20s and 30s that were single and EFF boys. His word. He noticed that the one guy in their team that was married would either get picked on or essentially excluded from any and all social interactions that included getting lunch, inside jokes, going out on Friday, etc. These guys were friendly and welcoming to Josh, and he admitted that he was desperate to fit in with them. He hated feeling like fresh meat, so he was scared that saying he was married would alienate him from his coworkers, and at first just never mentioned that he was married. He said he did wear his wedding ring and that they had just never pointed it out. A few months in, they were all out drinking after work. He admitted that after one of his workmates saw a picture of him and I on his lock screen, they asked him who I was, and in a moment of panic, he said, "My sister." He was really apologetic at this point and he was crying a lot. He couldn't even look at me, and he was just reading what he had written down. Anyway, he said that from then on, he basically dug himself a deeper and deeper grave because they kept grilling him about me and wanting to see more pictures of me. He said he had let it go on too long and that he didn't have the balls to admit to the lie. They would always bring me up and ask shit like, "Did you give her my number yet?" Or joke that they had slept with me, etc. So when he got that message from Jake, he essentially thought it was just him taking the piss, but he didn't like the jokes they were making about me and said that I was married in hopes they would stop. They didn't. He said that this wasn't the first time he told them I was married. In fact, he had said so pretty much immediately after saying I was his sister. He said that those pictures of us in Najua were the only pictures that he had purposefully sent them and deliberately lied about after what he called an endless barrage of pestering from his colleagues to share the pics from his holiday. He said he was really ashamed that he did that. He told me that he had never had an affair or even considered it, that the messages between him and his female colleagues were banter and that it was commonplace to talk to people like that in the office. He also said he knows how disgusting it is and he is embarrassed to have been acting like a EFF boy. Again, his word. He concluded his speech by apologizing again and said that he was disgusted with himself and ashamed that he had lied for so long but felt like he had trapped himself and that he couldn't find a way to get himself out of it. He said he knows he could have confessed the truth to either his coworkers or to me at any point, but that he didn't because he was a coward. He said that he'll confess to his entire office that he lied and that I am his wife and not his sister if I want him to. He said that he will quit his job without a word if it would make me feel better, and that he hopes I can forgive him but he understands if I can't. Anyway, I couldn't really think of anything to say at that point. He went to lock himself in the bathroom, and I just sat on the couch crying. I still don't know if I can trust what he said, and a lie that extreme is just baffling to me. If he can lie like that for so long, what else could he be lying about? But his explanation and apology seem so sincere and genuine, and I guess to an extent what he said is believable. He has always been extroverted but very susceptible to peer pressure, especially from other blokes. If nothing else, to me it's a sign of shocking immaturity. Anyway, I packed up a bag and went back to Sophie's, and I'm still at her place as I'm writing this. She said I can stay as long as I need to. I told Josh that I needed time away from him to think about everything and whether or not I believe him or whether I can ever trust him again. He told me to take as long as I needed and that he will still be there if or when I get back. He said, "Even if it takes a year. Right now, nothing feels real. I'm still dealing with the emotional whiplash from all of this, and I can't keep food down or think about anything. I've taken the day off work, and Josh told me he's going to take off the whole week. Sophie and my other friends have told me not to make a decision on anything until my head is clear. I spoke to my parents this morning, and my mom says it's just a bump in the road. But she and my dad adore Josh, so they're pretty biased, lol. That's where I am right now. I'll take some time before I consider my next steps. I can't say whether I'm leaning towards forgiveness or divorce, but those are really the only options. I kind of feel lost in a void at the moment. That's probably the best way to describe it, just emptiness. Thanks again for all of your advice and support. I'm truly so grateful. and having this place to write down all of my thoughts has been helpful to get my mind a little clearer. This will be my last update unless I make an edit to clear things up. All the best. Relevant comments that OP answered. OP. He said he hasn't taken his ring off and that people had pointed it out before, but he just managed to weasel his way out of explaining it. But he said people almost never noticed. I struggle to believe that, but I know. Thank you. That's how I feel too. From what he said, it sounded like it went unacknowledged because he never tried anything on with other women. But that's giving him a lot of grace. More grace than I'm willing to give him right now anyway. Comment 1. Having worked in the finance industry for years, 43F. There is definitely a more cliquey vibe than in some other industries. Being single and partying hard off hours is expected as you're coming up the ranks, and you definitely get picked on, singled out, and are passed over in favor of yes men/company men if you don't comply. That being said, your husband has no backbone. It takes an individual with a strong sense of self to march to the beat of their own drum when everyone else is doing something different. His inability to even admit that he was in a committed relationship is likely foreshadowing how he will be when times get tough, and they will get tough if you stay together. My recommendation is that he attends therapy on his own, and you attend couples counseling together with a different therapist, but only if you want to do so. OP. This is really helpful to know, thank you. I don't work in finance. I work for a small creative company, so I have no clue about workplace culture in other industries. But yeah, I am pretty horrified that he was that weak-willed under the pressure of random men. If I could ever bring myself to forgive him, I would definitely force him to attend counseling. I knew he was easily peer-pressured, but not to this extent. Comment 2. I'm so sorry you're going through this. What an absolute gut punch. When I read your first post, I was thinking there was a very good chance he didn't want to tell anyone he was married for this exact reason. It seems that fitting in and being liked by a bunch of frat brothers was more important to him than honoring your marriage. Why does he care so much about going out and getting drunk with these a-holes? Shouldn't he be moving past that mentality? I suggest marriage counseling. He needs to figure out what drove him to live this life for 3 years. And I'm curious, how often does he come home as drunk as he did? OP. He would often go for after-work drinks on Fridays. That's pretty standard where we live, so do I. But I should say that he doesn't regularly get that drunk. Last Friday, it was a special occasion because it was his friend's birthday, but this friend wasn't one of his work friends. I knew the guys he was out with. Now on to the next story. Story 9. My ex-fiancée refused to move out after she canceled our engagement because she was bored of me. I'm gonna dive right into a story that still kind of feels surreal to me. I'm a 35-year-old guy, and I've worked hard to get where I am. I work at a pretty big company, and I've always been the kind of guy who believes in building a stable life. I met my ex-fiancée, Amanda, at a mutual friend's wedding about 3 years ago. Amanda is 32 and worked as a marketing executive at the time. We hit it off almost immediately. She was outgoing, charming, and seemed to have her life together. For the first 2 years, our relationship felt like a dream. We were compatible in so many ways, shared common interests, and our friends even joked that we were relationship goals. About 6 months ago, I proposed to her and she said yes. Felt like everything was falling into place. We started planning our wedding, and Amanda moved into my house a year ago. It wasn't a mansion, but it was a decent place I'd worked hard to buy. I was excited about building a future together. About 2 months ago, out of the blue, Amanda told me she wanted to break off the engagement. I remember standing there completely blindsided as she explained that she felt trapped and not ready for marriage. To say I was heartbroken would be an understatement. I tried to understand where she was coming from and asked her if there was anything we could do to work through her doubts. Maybe we could postpone the wedding, give her some more time to feel comfortable? But Amanda was firm. She didn't want to get married. Not to me, not to anyone right now. She said she needed time to find herself, whatever that meant. It was clear she was done. I was devastated, but I knew that if she didn't want to be with me, there was no point in dragging it out. The relationship was over and I had to accept that. But the next step seemed pretty straightforward to me. If she didn't want to be with me, she had to move out. I mean, it was my house after all. When I asked Amanda to move out, I tried to be as gentle as possible given the circumstances. I gave her a 30-day notice, figuring that would be more than enough time for her to find a new place. But instead of agreeing to it, she flat out refused to leave. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She claimed that she had nowhere to go and no money saved up. This shocked me because, as far as I knew, she was doing fine financially. We'd never had issues splitting expenses, and she made a decent salary. But then, she confessed that she had quit her job a few weeks ago without telling me. She said she'd been feeling overwhelmed and needed a break. The money she had saved up? Well, she'd already spent most of it on shopping sprees and spontaneous trips with her friends. I was floored. How could she have hidden something so significant from me? I asked her why she didn't tell me sooner, why she kept this all to herself. But she didn't have a straight answer. She just said she was figuring things out and didn't want to stress me out. But now, she was expecting me to let her stay in my house indefinitely while she got her life together. I couldn't believe the audacity. As you can imagine, things started to go downhill pretty fast after that. Amanda became increasingly difficult to live with. She started inviting her friends over all the time, turning our home into a non-stop party zone. I'd come home from work exhausted, only to find the living room filled with people I didn't even know. They'd be drinking, making a mess, and acting like they owned the place. When I confronted Amanda about it, she brushed me off, saying that she needed to unwind, and that her friends were just helping her through a tough time. But it didn't stop there. She stopped doing any household chores. Dishes piled up, laundry was left scattered everywhere, and the place was constantly a mess. It was like living with a rebellious teenager rather than a grown-ass woman. I felt like a stranger in my own home. A few weeks into this nightmare, I accidentally stumbled upon something. Amanda had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower, and it kept buzzing with notifications. Normally, I wouldn't snoop, but something in my gut told me to check it out. And boy, am I glad, or maybe not so glad, that I did. I unlocked her phone and found a bunch of messages between her and one of her coworkers. Let's call him Eric. The messages were, well, let's just say they were anything but platonic. As I scrolled through the conversation, it became clear that Amanda had been cheating on me with Eric for months. They had been meeting up behind my back, and she had even been planning to leave me once she had enough money saved up. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Here I was, trying to be understanding and giving her space, while she was sneaking around with someone else. I thought back to all the times I had asked her if something was wrong, all the times I tried to make things work, and all the while she was lying to my face. That night, I confronted Amanda about what I'd found. I laid out everything, the messages, the cheating. I expected some sort of remorse, maybe an apology, or at least an explanation. But instead, Amanda just looked at me, completely unfazed. She didn't deny it. In fact, she seemed almost relieved that I knew. She told me she had been unhappy for months, and that our relationship had become boring. She said Eric made her feel alive again, and she didn't regret what she'd done. I was stunned. How could she be so cold, so unapologetic? I was done playing nice. I told her she had 48 hours to move out or I'd take legal action. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. The moment I gave her that ultimatum, something in her snapped. We got into a heated argument, with Amanda hurling all sorts of insults at me, blaming me for everything wrong in her life. She accused me of being controlling, of not being supportive enough, and even of being the reason she cheated. It was like she was trying to twist everything to make herself the victim. After that argument, I decided to dig a little deeper into our shared finances just to see if there was anything else she had been hiding. Amanda had racked up a significant amount of credit card debt, more than I could have ever imagined. She had maxed out several credit cards on luxury items, expensive dinners, and trips. But that wasn't the worst part. She had also been using my credit cards without my permission. I found charges for things I didn't recognize: high-end clothing stores, fancy restaurants, and even a weekend getaway that I definitely wasn't invited to. She had been living it up at my expense, all while pretending that everything was fine between us. I was furious. I confronted her about the unauthorized charges, and she didn't even try to deny it. She just shrugged and said she figured I wouldn't notice. I couldn't believe the audacity. At that point, it was clear that she had no respect for me or the life we had built together. The next day, while I was at work, she decided to retaliate in the most immature way possible. When I came home, I was greeted by a scene that looked like it was straight out of a horror movie. The house was trashed. Furniture was overturned. The walls were covered in graffiti, and valuable items were missing. She had even taken some of my family heirlooms, things that were irreplaceable. There were nasty messages written on the walls in what I assumed was permanent marker, calling me every name under the sun. It was like she had gone out of her way to hurt me in every way possible. I was beyond angry, but more than that, I was hurt. How could someone I had loved and trusted turn into this vindictive person? I knew I couldn't let this go. Amanda had crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I filed a police report for theft and property damage the next day. I also contacted a lawyer to begin the eviction process. It was clear that Amanda wasn't going to leave on her own, so I needed to take legal action to get her out of my house. The lawyer helped me draft an official eviction notice, which I served to Amanda later that week. She was furious when she received it, but at that point I didn't care. I was done playing nice. She had to go, and I was going to do whatever it took to make that happen. My family and friends were shocked when they found out what had happened. They had always liked Amanda, and no one had seen this side of her before. My parents were incredibly supportive, offering to help me clean up the mess she had left behind and even offering me a place to stay while I sorted everything out. It was comforting to know that I wasn't alone in this, but it didn't make the situation any less painful. I had trusted Amanda, and she had betrayed me in the worst way possible. After receiving the eviction notice, Amanda tried to change her tune. She started begging me to reconsider, saying that she had made a mistake and that she wanted to work things out. She tried to manipulate me with reminders of the good times we'd had, saying that we could get back to that if we just tried. But I wasn't buying it. I knew she was only trying to stay because she had nowhere else to go. When she realized that her attempts to manipulate me weren't working, she turned to threats. She said that if I went through with the eviction, she would tell all our mutual friends and even my coworkers that I had been abusive, both emotionally and physically. She said she'd destroy my reputation and make sure that no one believed my side of the story. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was willing to stoop that low just to stay in my house. It was like I didn't even know her anymore. But I wasn't going to let her threats scare me. I knew the truth and I had the evidence to back it up. If she wanted to play dirty, I was ready. The day of the eviction finally arrived. I had informed the police of the situation, and they agreed to be there to enforce the eviction if necessary. When I showed up at the house with the police, Amanda was still there. She had barricaded herself in the master bedroom and refused to come out. I couldn't believe she was taking it this far. The police knocked on the door and told her that she needed to leave, but she started screaming and crying, saying that she was going to hurt herself if they made her go. It was a nightmare. She was causing a scene, making all sorts of accusations against me, trying to make me look like the bad guy. The police had to call in a mental health professional to assess the situation, and eventually, they were able to convince Amanda to come out of the room. She was escorted out of the house, still screaming and crying, but at least she was finally gone. After Amanda was finally out of my house, I changed the locks and installed a security system. I wasn't taking any chances. The house was in bad shape, and I had a lot of work to do to get it back to normal. It was painful to see the place I had called home in such a state, but I was determined to rebuild. I started by cleaning up the mess she had left behind, throwing out the things she had destroyed, and repairing the damage. It was a slow process, but with the help of my family and friends, I managed to get the house back in order. But it wasn't just the physical damage that needed repairing. Once Amanda was out of the house, I pursued legal action for the theft and property damage. The police had all the evidence they needed, and my lawyer was confident that we had a strong case. Amanda was eventually ordered to pay restitution for the items she had stolen and the damage she had caused. In addition to the restitution, I also obtained a restraining order against Amanda. I didn't want her anywhere near me or my house. I needed to move on with my life, and I couldn't do that with her lurking in the background, ready to cause more trouble. Looking back on everything that happened, I realized that there were red flags that I missed or ignored. Amanda had always been a bit of a spender, but I never thought it would get to the point where she would be using my money without my knowledge. I should have been more aware of what was going on with her, but at the same time, she should have been honest with me instead of sneaking around. This whole experience has been a wake-up call for me. I've learned that trust is earned, not given, and that I need to be more careful about who I let into my life. I'm focusing on healing and personal growth now. I've even considered selling the house and starting fresh somewhere else, but I haven't made any decisions yet. So, here I am, sharing my story with all of you. Thanks for sticking with me through this long post. I appreciate any advice or thoughts you might have. And to end on a lighter note, if anyone knows a good place to buy a sturdy, Amanda-proof security system, let me know. So, am I the a-hole for kicking my ex-fiancée out of my house when she broke off our engagement and refused to move out? Update 1. Hey everyone, it's been about a month since I last posted, and I wish I could say things have calmed down, but unfortunately, that's not the case. After Amanda was evicted, I was hoping she'd just disappear from my life for good. I mean, she trashed my house, stole from me, and then violated the restraining order by stalking me. She even got arrested for it, so I figured she'd finally get the message. But apparently, she didn't. About 2 weeks ago, I started noticing some strange things happening around my house. It started with small stuff, like someone ringing my doorbell in the middle of the night and then running off. Then it escalated to finding my trash cans knocked over every morning. I tried to brush it off, thinking it was just some pranksters in the neighborhood. One night, I was coming home from a late shift at work when I saw something. There was a note taped to my front door. It was simple, just a piece of paper with the words, "You're not safe," written on it. The handwriting was unmistakable. It was Amanda's. I immediately called the police and handed over the note. They took it seriously, but there wasn't much they could do at that point. They advised me to keep my security cameras on and document anything else that happened. They also promised to increase patrols in my area, but they couldn't be there all the time. The next day, I got a call from my security company. They notified me that there was an attempted break-in at my house. The footage showed Amanda trying to pick the lock on my front door in the dead of night. When she realized she was being recorded, she looked straight into the camera and gave it a smile before walking away. I handed the footage over to the police, and they were able to arrest her for violating the restraining order again. But just like last time, she was released on bail the very next day. It's like no matter what I do, she's always one step ahead. My lawyer suggested filing for a permanent restraining order, but that process takes time, and I'm left feeling like I'm living in a horror movie. How do I make sure she stays away for good? Does anyone have any advice on what else I can do? I feel like I'm running out of options, and I'm terrified she's going to do something even worse next time. Update 2. Hey everyone, I'm back with another update, and things have taken a turn for the worse. I thought the worst Amanda could do was break into my house, but she's found a way to hit me where it hurts the most. My job. I work as a software developer, and my job is one of the few things that's kept me sane through all of this. I love what I do, and I've worked hard to get where I am. But about 3 weeks ago, my boss called me into his office with a serious look on his face. He handed me a stack of papers and asked me to explain myself. The papers were screenshots of emails that were supposedly sent by me to various coworkers. These emails were filled with racist, sexist, and downright vile comments. There were also threats in some of them directed at specific coworkers. I knew immediately that these emails were fake, but the problem was that they came from an email address that looked almost identical to mine. I explained to my boss that I didn't send those emails and that they had to be from Amanda. I told him about everything that had been happening. The break-in attempts, the restraining order, and how Amanda was now trying to ruin my life because I had kicked her out. Thankfully, my boss believed me. We have a good relationship, and he knows this isn't in my character at all. But even though my boss was on my side, the damage was done. Word about the email started to spread around the office, and I could feel people giving me the cold shoulder. I even overheard some coworkers whispering about me in the break room, wondering if the rumors were true. It's been a nightmare. I got in touch with our IT department, and they were able to trace the fake emails back to an IP address that wasn't mine. They confirmed that it was someone impersonating me, but that doesn't erase the damage to my reputation. I've handed all the evidence over to the police, but they've told me the same thing. They're building a case against Amanda, but these things take time. I've considered leaving my job and finding something remote where I wouldn't have to deal with this, but that feels like letting her win. I'm stuck and don't know what to do next. Has anyone dealt with a situation like this before? I'm open to any advice because, honestly, I'm at my wit's end. Update 3. Hey everyone, this is the final update, I hope. It's been about 4 months since my first post, and I've finally reached what I hope is the end of this nightmare. But not without some more drama first, of course. After my last update, things continued to escalate. Amanda was still out on bail, and I was constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for her next move. I'd already dealt with her breaking into my house and trying to ruin my career, so I figured she'd come up with something even more drastic next. And I was right. About a month ago, I was leaving work late one evening when I found all 4 tires on my car slashed. My car was sitting in the parking lot on flat tires, and I knew immediately who was responsible. When I checked the security footage, there she was, Amanda, slashing my tires and then calmly walking away as if nothing had happened. I called the police again, and this time they took it more seriously. Amanda was arrested later that night, but this time I made sure she wouldn't be getting out on bail so easily. My lawyer and I pushed hard for her to be held without bail, and thankfully the judge agreed. Amanda was finally behind bars where she couldn't hurt me anymore. But the damage she'd done was still there. My reputation at work had taken a hit. My car was in the shop, and I was emotionally drained. I started seeing a lawyer more frequently to figure out what my next step should be. He suggested suing Amanda for the damages she caused, both to my property and my reputation. He also suggested filing for a permanent restraining order, which would make it harder for her to get near me in the future. I'm pursuing both options, but it's going to be a long process. In the meantime, I've made some decisions about my life. I've decided to sell my house and move to a new city. I love my job, but I'm going to ask for a transfer to a different office or maybe even switch to a remote position. I need a fresh start, away from all the memories of what Amanda put me through. So I guess this is goodbye for now. Thanks to everyone who gave me advice and support over the past few months. I couldn't have gotten through this without you. I'm hopeful that this is the last time I'll have to deal with Amanda and that from here on out, I can focus on rebuilding my life. Thanks again, everyone, and take care. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Refused to give my friend the key to her husband's apartment after she cheated. Planned to ambush him despite his no-contact request. Then threatened me when I said no. I became friends with a couple, F26, M31, when they moved to my city about 3 years ago. I met them together, and I'm closer with the wife but also still friends with the husband. About a year ago, the wife moved to another city for her job while the husband stayed behind to finish his master's. I got a call from the wife in September. She was inconsolable and said that she had a brief affair with someone but called it off because she wanted to focus on her marriage. The AP did not take it well, found the husband, and told him everything in painful detail with screenshots/photo evidence. The husband was obviously blindsided and devastated. They are still in 2 separate states, and the husband has gone low to no contact with the wife, asking her for space. She has been incredibly emotional since this happened. I've been in contact with her multiple times a day, even just to check in and let her know she's loved and important, but she's understandably been a mess. I've seen the husband a few times. I let him know that the wife told me what happened and that I just wanted him to know that I'm here if he needs anything. My goal is to just be there for both of my friends and not get in the middle. To me, it comes down to some bad decisions that were made that had really painful consequences. There's no villain in this story. People are not the sum of their mistakes. Fast forward to present day, where the wife was served with divorce papers. She wants to talk to him in person, but he doesn't. He agreed to FaceTime only if they do speak. She wants to fly here without telling him and show up on his doorstep to fight for the marriage. They have a door code to their apartment that they use every day. They also have a key which they gave me about a year ago when I was watching their pets. When I went to give it back to the husband, he said, just to hang on to it. He let her know that he has changed the code to the door, so right now, she has no physical way to get into the apartment if he's not home. She's also concerned that he won't let her in if he knows it's her, which I don't think would be the case, but who knows. She asked me to pick her up from the airport and give her the key so that she can get in. I said I'm really not comfortable with it because I don't want the husband to feel like I've betrayed him or was part of some sort of ambush. She's also walking in at 10 p.m. when he is not expecting anybody. I'd be really spooked if it was me. He's former military, but I just think it's not great to surprise anyone that late. I know this sounds stupid, but I suggested that if she gets to the apartment and he won't let her in or isn't home, I can drive over, I'm only 15 minutes away, and give her the key then. But she said no. She is on the lease, so she can still legally enter the apartment. So, I've reluctantly agreed to give her the key up front. So, I'd betray him if I give her the key, or I'd betray her if I don't give it to her up front. Edit 1. I should have clarified that they were still together when they gave me the key, which is part of why I'm conflicted. She technically gave it to me with him there. She had already moved for her job when I went to give it back and he told me to just hang on to it. Edit 2. This is a difficult situation because her mental health has declined significantly since this all occurred. There have been episodes of self-harm and suicidal thoughts, where she was actually making a plan and reached out to me. I was able to coordinate with one of her friends there and convinced her to admit herself to the hospital for a 48-hour hold. So her mental health has been incredibly fragile. That doesn't excuse the choices she's made in any way. During those episodes, she asked me to reach out to her husband to tell him the state she was in, and I told her no because I felt like it was manipulative, and I also felt like whether he responded or not, it would only impact her negatively either way, and she needed to work with her therapist to help her through this. The support I've given her has been solely regarding her mental health. I haven't engaged in any conversations with either of them about the other. She has mostly vented to me about her deep regret, remorse, guilt, and lack of self-worth because of the choices she's made, and as her friend, I've really tried to just support her as a vulnerable human being by reminding her that we are not the sum of our mistakes, and while this is painful and has some deep consequences, she still has so much to live for. I say all this because I'm seeing a lot of comments saying that I inserted myself into the middle of this, but this all just happened today. She asked me for the key and I told her I wasn't comfortable with that for the reasons stated in my original post. She is obviously emotional, and again, she is technically the one that gave me the key, which is why I reluctantly agreed, but then I came here because my conscience is telling me that's not the right decision, even though I feel like I'm trying to balance a sensitive situation which has been really intense. Edit 3. Wow, what a jolt this has been in a really short span of time. First, I do want to say that I absolutely think the choices she made were wrong, and so does she. She knows that she FD up and has been torturing herself over it in some really intense ways that I am absolutely not qualified to help her navigate, but have tried to be a supportive friend through it because of the immediacy and severity of the help she needed at the time. Thanks to everyone for the perspective. I think I've been so worried about her emotional state over the last few months that I've been too close to it to see what some of you are saying, and that she's being a bit manipulative with me, especially when I told her I wasn't comfortable giving her the key. I'm going to call her tomorrow and let her know that I'm not giving it to her. I really appreciate the snap out of it slap a lot of you provided. Update January 9th, 2025. Update on the wife. I let her know this morning that I wouldn't be giving her the key. As many of you predicted, she instantly responded with complete vitriol. No discussion, no please reconsider. None of that. Just straight to I can't believe you right now. I can't rely on anyone. Thanks a lot. Fine, you will regret it. That last one was a bit unexpected. I probably would have been shocked if I hadn't read the feedback on this post beforehand, so I was honestly unfazed and just responded that I don't support what she's trying to do, and like a few people mentioned, if roles were reversed and the husband was asking me to do this, I would absolutely be saying the same thing, and that she needs to respect my decision because it wasn't going to change. Among other things, she told me I was ruining everything. I let her know that unfortunately, she is the one that has ruined everything with the decisions she's made in the past, and that it's time for her to start taking accountability and stop looking for people to blame. I also told her that I would be giving the key back to the husband and letting him know what she was planning. She lost it. Lots of swearing, lots of self-pity, threats of self-harm, and then said I wasn't a good friend to her. That's when I had enough. I told her I was done being a punching bag for her and that I know I've been a good friend to her when no one else was supporting her and I saw her through some dark times. I said her selfishness had finally crossed a line with me. I ended it by saying that she's in a dangerous state of mind and that she should reach out to her therapist and share our conversation so she can give her an objective view of it. I let her know that she needed help that I can no longer give and that I was done. She sent me 2 apology texts about 5 minutes later, but I haven't responded and don't plan to. If she somehow shows up at my door, if she flies in tomorrow, I won't be answering. Update on the husband. I let him know everything this morning. We're good and we made plans to give him back the key. She's supposed to fly in tomorrow night and leave Saturday. He actually won't even be in town this weekend. Now on to the next story. Story 11. Proposed to my GF and she suddenly changed. I'm 32. I just recently proposed to my girlfriend of 2 years, Sharon, F30. About a month and a half ago, and it feels like the second the ring got on her finger her attitude and behavior took a total 180. The entire time we were dating we seemed exceptionally compatible, and at least it seemed we shared common beliefs and morals. 7 weeks ago I proposed and she said yes, and I felt like it was the happiest moment for the two of us. But not even a week later it's like her attitude totally flipped. I thought I knew all her friends. But one day I came home, and there were 6 women I've never seen before and Sharon introduced me to them. I was curious as to why I was just now meeting them when I already met Sharon's 2 best friends, Michelle and Octavia, both not present, over a year and a half ago. Sharon said she wanted to make sure we were a sure thing before I met her and her circle. I found this strange, not to mention it was a weeknight and they were quickly draining my wine rack of wine. Sharon still had her own place, but she stayed with me so often she practically lives here still. I found it incredibly rude when they left with 4 empty bottles of rose in their wake. I tried to talk to Sharon about having uninvited guests on weeknights and she dismissed my grievance very flippantly. More than that, she brushed me off. The following weeks she went out with the girls several times and when she brought the girls to my place twice without notice, once with notice to appease me, her words, they all treated me like a butler, shaking their empty wine glasses at me for refills. After the 4th time I made it clear that I will get a locked wine rack. Sharon just called me no fun after that. It gets worse. Sharon decided me and the girls got off on the wrong foot and said we should have dinner together at a nice restaurant. Well, I went and it was not great. The 6 kept prodding me about my life, my house, my career, but deflected every question I asked. It got especially bad at night when they started talking about modern relationships and jealousy, and one of them brought up some key points about relationships that I thought Sharon and I were on the same page about, specifically what-ifs regarding polyamory and being friends with exes. To my shock, Sharon said we shouldn't be too hasty on such decisions, which was a total 180 to how she expressed herself on these things only a month prior, where she was vehemently against keeping ex-intimate partners in friend circles and was staunchly monogamous. The worst part was when the bill arrived. Sharon announced it should be together and slid me the check. I told her she can't be serious and we got into a bit of an argument. I ended it by putting my amount down in cash and walked out, leaving them to figure out the rest of the bill. The next days after that Sharon kept calling me toxic and fragile, but every time I even pushed at it she would give an apology and promise she was just stressed at work. It's nuts, we haven't even planned the wedding yet. The worst part was this Monday when at work I got a Nest doorbell alert. I checked and saw Sharon and one of her 6 new friends arriving at my place, going in and exiting with my golf clubs. This set was a gift from my father and it cost a pretty penny too. So Sharon lending it out without my permission got me pissed. I immediately called Sharon and told her and her friend to return the clubs. Sharon tried to gaslight me with, "But you promised to lend the clubs to her boyfriend, remember?" I told her the club's cost would move it into a serious crime and her friend had an hour to return them or the cops would be called. Sharon kept insisting she got my permission and I told her to cut the crap. Well, not 45 minutes later, I got another notification of Sharon and her friend coming back with the clubs and going inside, leaving them. Sharon's friend flipping off the Nest doorbell on the way out. I got home and saw Sharon's friend literally just threw the clubs and bag on the living room floor. Sharon tried to talk to me about my toxicity again and I told her again to cut the crap. I said if I knew this was how she was, I would have never proposed. That seemed to freak her out, and she again insisted that it was just stress from work. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her to return the ring and her key, and we would talk about our relationship this weekend. She cried and begged me not to cancel the engagement and insisted that it was just stress. I told her again, we will talk about it this weekend. She finally relented. I had my house rekeyed anyways after she left just to be safe. Sharon has been texting me constant messages of love and apologies for getting swept up, and insisted she was only wanting to show me off to her close friends. I don't know. I'm just not buying it. The same close friends have been sending me texts daily calling me toxic and fragile again, saying they knew I wasn't man enough for Sharon or secure enough to share her with friends. A few of my friends that knew Sharon the entire 2 years we were dating were surprised and can't believe she turned this quick, and that there must be something missing or that I am leaving something out. They say I must have said something to trigger her friends to act like this, and I had to have been an a-hole somewhere along the process. I do know it's a lot to take from all directions right now. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. I bet he hasn't seen Octavia and Michelle anymore. They did their purpose, and now the ex is too stressed out from work to meet both of her friends. OP. I did message Michelle on Facebook last night. I asked her about the 6, and she told me that her, Octavia and Sharon are cousins and grew up together. Michelle said that she didn't really care for the 6, but didn't say much else. Comment 2. Your friends are idiots and triggered. No. Nobody normal comes to someone's house uninvited and drinks a ton of the person's wine without permission. OP. Again. They knew Sharon for 2 years, and throughout the entire time Sharon didn't act at all like this. I'll give them some leeway for now. Comment 3. Understanding. 34. 2 years and she didn't introduce you to these friends? She knows how terrible they are and how terrible she is with them. She put on quite a show to get the ring, and now that she thought she had you locked down, she can show her true colors. Unless you are leaving out something, you are definitely NTA. You are not toxic or fragile, you have standards. What she did at the restaurant and with the clubs is toxic. It seems like she wants to show them she has you wrapped around her finger and that you will allow her and them to do whatever they want. I wouldn't give her another chance to use you for what you can do or give to her. No one that loves you would treat you like this. Friends or no friends present. Update, September 14th, 2024. Sharon's been gone now for an hour. The breakup is official. I have the ring back. I did talk to Michelle via Facebook, and Michelle said her and Octavia were cousins of Sharon, and Michelle also said she knew the 6 and didn't care for them. Michelle didn't say much more than that. I did meet Sharon's parents, and they both seemed to like me, and the topic of Michelle and Octavia never came up around them. None of our finances were intermingled yet, but it was planned for later this month, which won't happen. I invited 3 of our mutual friends, Casey, John, and Mike, to be here when Sharon got here. Sharon showed up and was surprised to see we had company. I said they were here for both of us. Sharon wanted to phone 3 of the 6 to come over to even things out, and I refused, and I used the club theft as a reason. Sharon sat on the couch very dramatically and then asked if I really wanted to make this public. I outright asked why she changed so much after the engagement and why she hid the existence of the 6. Sharon then went in again about how she insulates her inner circle until a partner is vetted. I called BS. I met her parents. What's more inner circle than your parents? Sharon tried to deflect, but I wouldn't have it. I pointed out how for the last month her friends dropping by cost me nearly $500 in wine, which she, by the way, made no attempt to reimburse. I also pointed out her trying to make me pay an 8-person dinner bill without asking me first. She again said she wanted to show how great a guy I was, and how she clearly misjudged me and was disappointed in my attitude. I then asked about the clubs. She tried gaslighting with, "You totally said it was okay, remember?" And I kept saying, "Bullshit." Mike piped in. He knew the clubs were a gift for my dad, and I was highly protective of them. He too called BS, and that's when Sharon turned her attention to Mike and John, saying, "Isn't he getting forgetful lately? Don't you remember when he forgot that one date?" And neither was buying it. I finally said that forget postponing the wedding or canceling the engagement. The entire relationship is going to end if she isn't going to be straight with me. Sharon made a very long, exaggerated sigh. She took the ring off and dropped it on the coffee table. She got up to leave and said, "You're never going to find someone as good as me," and to send her stuff to her apartment. She left and Casey, John and Mike were totally stunned. All I could say was, "Believe me now?" We ordered pizza and are waiting for it to arrive now. I am still in shock and confused by Sharon's attitude. I'm sure the heartbreak will come next, but right now I'm just kind of numb. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.